What do we like about midsize SUVs and which one is the best? First of all, for our friends in the US, the cars that we have here might still be compact. However, in Europe we say midsize because Porsche Macan, Mercedes GLC, BMW X3, Audi Q5, Volvo XC60, they all share the same platforms with their respective mid-size sedans like Mercedes C-Class, BMW 3 Series, Audi A4 and Volvo S60. So the mid-size SUVs we have here are bigger than their compact SUV brothers, which are mainly for city use, but still smaller than their bigger brothers Porsche Cayenne, Mercedes GLE, BMW X5 and Volvo XC90. And that's also why I find them so interesting. So if you don't have huge parking spots, you still need to go inside the city, but you are already wanting a great comfort and luxury, that might be the sweet spot. Indeed, these SUVs here do offer more comfort and features than their smaller brothers and sisters, especially for taller people. And another big difference is that they offer bigger engines, whereas for example Mercedes GLB or GLA, Audi Q3, BMW X1 do not offer 6 cylinders, except Volvo doesn't do that at all. And for most SUVs we show here today, you can also get air suspension. So let's dig deeper now into exterior, interior and driving thoughts of all those mid-size SUVs. Enjoy this comparison episode in each part and tell us in the comments later on which one is your favorite and why. And of course, we will tell you which one is our favorite in a very thorough conclusion. If you think about Porsche in general, you might first think about the sports cars and especially the 911. But if you think globally now in sales, Porsche is meanwhile rather an SUV brand, and the Porsche Macan is their worldwide bestseller. This one is a full review of the Porsche Macan facelift with a special focus here on the entry-level engine 2-liter 4-cylinder. Is that still a real Porsche? And how does it compare to the Macan S, the 3-liter 6-cylinder that AJ has recently driven for you with the facelift? We'll clear all those questions here, a detailed portrait in exterior, interior and the driving experience on the German Autobahn here today, also with some high speed here for this very engine to really test its performance. On Autogefühl in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! In the front, what has the facelift changed? Well, the fog lamps went away and you have a new daytime running light here in the lower area. LED is now from standard and optional you can get adaptive LED lights. In general, of course, the Macan has this sleek Porsche design here in the front, and indeed it is a Porsche SUV, like a put up 911. I think design-wise you can still realize that. If the facelift is now better or worse, that's just personal preference, but I think it definitely adds some more elegance to the design, I think. I think this is a very good example for a nice sleek SUV design. There's always the problem with designing SUVs because they're just higher, so they tend to look a little bit clumsier than lower cars, but I think they manage it here quite well. Just round design scheme here overall. 18 to 21-inch wheels are available. Those ones are the top wheels here. I'll talk about later about those ones here. As for the comfort, suspension wise, you get the base suspension, then you have the PASM 50mm lower suspension. We have that one here today, and then optional, also very rare in this segment here still, an air suspension. The Mercedes GLC has that, Audi Q5 also has that, and since Audi Q5, the old Audi Q5 by the way, and the Porsche Macan share the same platform, that is also being offered. Interesting that together to the white color here today, there's the contrasting black integrated ring right here that fits very well, and also we have black frames around the windows today. I think is a good contrast here to the white car overall. In the design, by the way, I really love those wheels, this spider style, you know, like 90s BBS inspired. I really like it. What about you? Coming to the rear of the vehicle, you see the biggest difference from the exterior since the facelift, and that is this light strip that goes all over the vehicle now, corresponding also to their all-new models. And I think it fits the car very well and also stretches the width a little bit more. Other than that, still a very round design scheme. Those exhaust tip here, by the way, they are one piece. However, the rear exhaust is approximately that big. And then this whole outer part, of course, you know, that's not where everything, you know, the air comes out, but they made an effort to put it at least in one piece. That's always special here when you open the hood. The light stays down and then those gaps in top of the hood. Very interesting with the Macan. Today the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, 6.5 seconds is the acceleration, 245 horsepower. With the sports chrono package, of course, this 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour acceleration. Then there's also a 3-liter V6 in the Macan S with 354 horsepower, 5.4 seconds acceleration figure, so about a second faster. And then there's the new downsized 2.9-liter V6 turbo with 440 horsepower in the Macan turbo. Interior, right here. One design scheme is everything in Porsche always wrapped tightly. That's very beautiful. Horizontal stress, also nice build quality. You also have some decent space at the inside of the doors. This is of course a special color combination, white on the exterior, beige on the interior. In the US you see a lot of vehicles like those, also from different brands. In Europe, hardly. Maybe then in the south of Europe, but in the northern parts of Europe, really people don't like that. What's your take on that? I personally have to say I just like it because it is somehow, no, it's just bright and friendly and gives a little bit, you know, of like Sun California style, something like that. So I like it. What about you? So interesting is, since the facelift, what changes do we have here? Well, it's mostly about the infotainment screen, but we'll soon take a detailed look at that from another perspective. So far, let's talk about the seats. They are base seats that then rather go like straight here and also in the left area. Those ones here are the adaptive sport seats that have a wider shoulder area right there and also bigger bolsters in this and also in the lower part. Besides that, as for the surfaces, as a standard Macan, both also in Europe and the US, the middle parts usually come with Alcantara and the outside then leatherette. And the great thing is you get them in black, in beige like here, but also in gray. Those 3 colors available, also with nice Alcantara. Those ones here are the optional animal skin seats, about over 6,000 euros extra. You can save those, and the Alcantara will also stay a little bit cooler in summer and warmer in winter times, so save the money, go for the base Alcantara seats. Steering wheel here again, last shot at that. You know, you have already a lot of controls at the steering wheel, but they keep a little bit away from that, as they here still use those columns here. But you might remember this old column here, this one here, it feels really weird when you shift that one like this here, like the resistance you feel here. It's a little bit weird and doesn't really resonate the rest build quality at Porsche. But the newer ones, the newer turning indicators in their all new models are now a little bit better. Welcome to this updated interior. Main element here, this new screen, 11-inch. That's the biggest news. Well, you have just a clearer view. Everything is bigger and wider and also easier to control. This one here is the GPS, for example. Suit more details to that. Steering wheel right here again with just a few controls right there. The right side here, right thumb, to control the very small screen on the right side part here. Rather classic instrument with this analog dials. Well, The right one, of course, is then a screen, for example, also with all-wheel drive information, or also then the GPS map if the GPS is running. And on the left side, you have the volume control. Nice shifting pedals here too. You still have some hotkeys here for the infotainment screen, and also the volume control here, so steering wheel and here. Then the lower console here, you know, there are a lot of buttons still. Do you like that? Do you like it separated like this one here, or is it maybe too much? I like it that the temperature control is still manual. However, it's not that easy to control as you would just have a turning knob, but that one is still separated right here. When we drive, we also talk about those different driving modes. And this automatic gearbox here, quite high, this lever we see. They nowadays also in the all new cars put very, very small ones where you can almost shave with. Well, that's an insider, you get it when you watch the 911 review. And there are also adaptive cup holders right there. And then you have an armrest, by the way, shake test here, pretty well attached. And underneath you have 2 USB supplies, put your smartphone, and also below that some other clutter. Here again in detail, the all-wheel drive distribution, tire pressure, the consumption in detail, for example, but also when you have the ACC, the optional one, now also equipped with the autonomous emergency brake, if you pick that combination then for the distance settings, for example. And this is the new infotainment screen here with a nice CPU unit. You see here, pinch and zoom works pretty well. You also get somewhat like a feedback with the clicks. Phone either with Bluetooth or with Apple CarPlay, then with the cable connection, and then you can go right here. This is the integration. You can at the same time see the GPS because it has this wide screen, very interesting, but you can always go back here to this GPS here in this full view. Then you also have, for example, here the vehicle settings, you can change the light setting and so on, and also with some nice visualization. So overall, you know, pretty nice to use, and I like to have some hotkeys still, especially they can easily access the GPS again. And the sound system, by the way, is also pretty powerful. It's the optional Bose sound system we have here. Let's get inside here, and it is an SUV, mid-size SUV, and therefore you also have some, you know, decent upright seating position. However, I always raise the back part of the seat a little bit higher, so this would be the lowest position. And when it's 86 or 6'1", still leaves plenty of headroom. If you go for the optional panoramic roof, you will have a little bit less headroom, but you see, it will still also work for tall people. So I put the back part of the seat always a little bit more upright, so the seating position is a little bit more upright, you have better overview and also more long-term comfort. Those base seats, I would rather give those, you know, the first try, because not only because of the surface, but also the more open form, you know. It's of course a matter of taste, but especially if you're a little bit taller in general, maybe also a little bit wider, those space seats will give you a little bit more space to move around. Those sport seats here are definitely narrower right here. Although I already have those bolsters in the most open position, you can even close them a little bit more. However, if you're rather small and need this support, then this seat form might then be better. Again, steering wheel has a good size. You can adjust it here in an electric way, also in reach. Takes some while, you know, but overall does the job. There's also a heated steering wheel available. This is an option. I will also tell you more about prices very soon. Yeah, pricing is something really to discuss with this vehicle. Well, if AJ and I test the very same vehicles, always take into account that AJ is a little bit smaller, so that's more helpful if you are also maybe rather his size, and if you're rather my size, then it's better for you to watch my review too, or maybe just compare those, because AJ was quite fine here in the rear, but I'm actually not, so the package of this vehicle is not the best. Yes, it's shorter than the Cayenne, but then again, for the length of this vehicle, it does not offer so much rear legroom. That's rather disappointing, so I do hit the seat here with my knees, and I'm in the driving position I would be driving indeed. Headroom-wise, that's no problem. And I really love this beautiful Alcantara ceiling. Then there's also some USB supplies here, 2 USB supplies in the rear, next to, if you want, additional climate zone. Isofix at the outer parts of the seats. And there's also an armrest with cup holders right there. And you can even use this one here as a ski hatch. It's always a little bit funny because you open the Macan trunk right here at the wiper. And then as for the measurements, here you can have about just under 1 meter in length and just about 1 meter in width. That's totally okay. And in height right there at this cover, about 50 centimeters, of course a little bit less in the front area. Liter figures here is 500 liters like this and 1,500 liters if I flip the seats. Here you can see also this cabin trolley can be put in a vertical way. So you're actually just fine with this luggage compartment, I think. And if I flip those seats, here we go. 1/3, 2/3 split, but as I've shown you just earlier, you can also just flip the middle part as a ski hatch. That's possible. And then we'll come to the maximum setup. You have to go around and do it from the rear. It's not possible, like from the rear compartment, not possible to do it directly from the trunk. And then here we go with the maximum setup. Oh, and then there's also a 12-volt power box right there and power outlet, maybe for like your mobile cooling box or something. Blind spot monitor here, you can see it very well, one of the assistance system features. And welcome to Thomas's driving lounge here with the Porsche Macan. Today the special with the facelift, of course, and also the 2-liter 4-cylinder. As I said earlier, AJ recently had the 3-liter 6-cylinder in the Macan S. So we start with some city driving right here, and then we head over to the motorway and also to a part where we can really let this car fly and see what about this performance. Is it still a Porsche performance-wise? How does it feel? So how does the Macan perform here in city driving? Well, the one advantage is if you compare it to a Cayenne, or if you decide between a Macan or a Cayenne, the Macan is just smaller, so you feel a little bit more eased inside the city, easier with parking spots and so on, and just also when the streets are a little bit narrower. It has a great handling, so you have a direct response from the steering wheel, a very natural steering feeling. It sits very well on the road, feels pretty light and agile, and it indeed even feels a little bit smaller than it actually is. As assistance systems, you get also the adaptive cruise control, for example, is also equipped with this very vehicle. So at the moment, you just need to set it in and keep steering, and accelerating and braking is done with the car then. So if you want to increase the speed and push the extra lever forward, or hold it a little bit longer to go in 10 kilometer steps upward and downward. Probably miles, I make it 5 steps, or like 5 miles steps. Do you know that? Do you have a Macan yourself, or maybe a Cayenne with that cruise control? Then please tell me in the comments. And the interesting thing is that now with the facelift, they include the autonomous emergency brake, so the so-called city emergency brake, into the ACC. It's still not standard equipment. That's really a shame for such an expensive vehicle. But at least they included it in the ACC. Before that, the Macan did not have that. Pretty interesting. They were arguing that they don't want to intervene with the customer, So, yeah, but I think, as for safety, this is absolutely a good decision to have this one from standard equipment. Everyone might be not really paying that much attention at some point, for what reason whatsoever. So this is really a very important system. And having a lot of fun already driving the Macan here in the city, as it's so agile. It always, when you approach the next lane change, you hear situations like those, you're always happy for the next lane change, for some steering action. That's just a lot of fun. I really like that. And again, the size, this mid-size SUV, is a really good one, because mid-size SUV, you can still use it for almost everything. You can get along in the city. It already has a decent comfort. It's not too big, so they're actually a good compromise where you can do a lot of things with just that very one vehicle. This one here is equipped with 21-inch, the maximum wheel size, and also with the PASM, the Porsche Active Suspension Management. This was an old Cayenne, by the way. So there's a standard suspension, then there's the optional PASM, the adaptive suspension, but it's also 50 millimeters lower. And then another option is the air suspension. Well, I would go for the air suspension, especially if I would lease the vehicle and not maybe like keep it for 15 years or so. Might get very expensive to repair an air suspension. You always have to keep that in mind when it's, when it's broken after like a couple of years or something. I don't know how long it takes, but we also have a lot of customer experience. We really say, like there was a really high repair cost when they were repairing the air suspension and so on. So if you keep the car for 10 or 15 years, you might take it into account. However, then also the car is really expensive, and if you want the best comfort, the air suspension will do best, yes, and then you might as well spend the extra money on that. So where an air suspension is available, I think usually it's also good to go for it. With BMW, it's not that necessary because their normal adaptive suspension are really that superb that you also have a lot of comfort even if you didn't pick the extra air suspension. Here, you definitely have more comfort when you have the air suspension, no doubt. And well, together with this 21-inch wheels, the suspension is indeed quite stiff. This car will still be sporty if you have the air suspension, or if you go for the base suspension, or if you go with a PASM and pick like 19-inch wheels. It will still feel very sporty, just not that rough. Sometimes people mistake a rough driving characteristic for not, for being sporty. So, the car's not necessarily sporty when it's just rough. The suspension is actually quite nice, but you feel that the wheels are just too big for those very small stuff that you face on the road, smaller bumps and so on. So, yeah, if you want it a little bit stiff and rough, then that might be something for you. But again, I think you lose too much comfort with this very setup you have here. On the motorway, also a very calm experience. The noise insulation is also really good, so I hardly need to raise my voice at all. That's pretty cool. So, also a good motorway cruiser, and again, I can set the cruise control and everything is just fine. I will also show you the blind spot monitor when someone is overtaking us. So far no one is coming, but that will come soon, and you will see there's yellow light flashing right there. I was keeping it, with rather low speed at the moment. The all-wheel drive distribution is always more in the rear than in the front. At the moment, just a little bit in the front. When I really hammer the throttle, then you will see that the all-wheel drive is also transporting more torque to the front wheels. So the rear wheel bias here for the all-wheel drive is somewhat guaranteed. Consumption is just close to 9 liters on 100 kilometers. That has remained the same also for this engine. It's also a quite realistic figure. Think about this engine here in the Golf, for example, 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. We also end up with about 8. We can also drive it at 7. This one's a little bit heavier. This one is an SUV. So something close to 9 is realistic. If you keep it slow, you can of course exceed it. That would be some 29 mpg US or 31 mpg in the UK, something in that region. Now when we're going uphill, it's of course also a little bit more. And we soon now get to our high-speed part. Before that, someone will you overtake us? Come on, show our viewers. There it is. Thank you. Thanks. So that was the blind spot monitor. Also a very important safety feature. You should definitely go for that. And yeah, sadly, Porsche makes you pay extra for almost everything. Now we'll also go to the sports mode. The sports mode will turn up the RPMs a little bit higher. Will give us a little bit more sound, and also changed not only the shifting characteristics, also the throttle input, for example. And we'll get that now on the motorway part where we can really accelerate it out and see, is this still, performance-wise, a real Porsche? So we'll let this, now we go from front of this car, 50 kilometers to whatever. That's 150. So that was 50 to 150. And directly some comments to high-speed driving. Now we're about 160. And see, it's not too loud here. So that's still somewhat reasonable. So I'm fine with that. And the car also remains very stable. In the sports mode, also the suspension, when you have the adaptive suspension, or also the air suspension, which is also an adaptive one, Then also the suspension goes a little bit stiffer to have a little bit more control over the car. So really feels very good at high speeds. Of course, that's something what a Porsche also stands for. It's like nothing driving this car here at higher speeds. And you need, seating position and how everything is processed and so on. And also, for example, here, the brakes. Pretty crisp also when you hammer them. That definitely feels like a Porsche. So if you go for this base Macan with the 4-cylinder engine, you shouldn't miss too much. You've seen the acceleration was quite decent. Yeah, with a 6-cylinder it would have been a little bit more spectacular, no doubt about that. 6.5 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour, and that's just about 1 second in difference then if you compare it to the Macan S. So not too big of a difference. It's more a little bit of philosophy, and there are people who care really a lot about it, and then there are people who don't care at all. I mentioned earlier, Chinese market, very big for the 2-liter Macan here, and a lot of the customers there, they don't really care about the engine in there. They rather care about other luxury features of the vehicle, but not necessarily about the engine. And in the US, for example, especially very important that you still have, a lot of displacement. So it really depends on the market. And I mean, me personally, I really like to drive high displacement, naturally aspirated petrol engine. And it had nothing to do with higher or lower consumption, because those small turbo engines here, they consume sometimes even more than those older, big naturally aspirated engines. It's just on paper that they maybe consume less, but effectively for the customer, it's not really making sense in most cases, at least. So, when you have more displacement, you get a little bit more calm serenity or something, but here you have enough performance, so it's not really lacking power. It's just you don't have this very sonorous sound. Maybe again, I always talk about the sovereignty of a car. It's more like the how much confidence it gives you, and that's sometimes with those bigger engines a little bit more. You feel a little bit more relaxed, although you have, or maybe because you have more power just from the throttle input. Then again, the power here is always there. There's not such a big turbo lag or something, especially if you're in sport mode. You've seen it on our acceleration. It was right there, and also here when I'm doing some accelerations out of the corners. Especially here in this combination with the smaller engine and the dual clutch transmission, can you feel is that if you have, for example, the bigger engine and then also a converter automatic gearbox, I have the feeling that here the car shifts a little bit faster, always has to do with the power curve and so on. So yeah, if you are an experienced car driver and have driven different engines, then you would notice the difference. But if maybe not that well experienced with vehicles, and you go into this car and leave the sound aside, and who could really tell how much cylinder this car has, So again, power-wise, you have nothing to miss. Yes, I think we can agree that bigger petrol engines are maybe a little bit more fun or a little bit more pleasing, that's for sure. But then again, if you think about the extra price you pay for that and what you already get with this engine, then of course you might start to think about it. Initially taught you something about the prices, $50K in the US, $50K without VAT, then including VAT about 60K euros in Germany, and then you can easily top this car up to about 90 when you have high spec or the turbo. And then I was really shocked as I was reading the extra price list from this vehicle, and this vehicle here as we were driving at the moment is 80K in euros. Wow. Although it's a small engine. For example, this optional animal skin equipment here, together with those 21-inch wheels, is almost 10K. So other people buy a car for 10,000, be it a new or a used one, and here the alloys plus the animal leather equipment on the seat costs the same. That's ridiculous. That's seriously ridiculous. So that's also one of my biggest criticism points. This car is just too expensive. However, as we're on the driving part, I really have to say it drives astonishingly well, gives you a great feeling. It can combine sportiness and luxury, and is somewhat, a better compromise than the Cayenne. If you are in the US and you have a lot of space, big parking lots, and you don't like, West Coast or Central or something, then the Cayenne isn't such a disadvantage in comparison to the Macan. However, the Macan can maybe deliver a little bit more driving fun because it's way lighter, and that might be an argument for you. So always have to think about pros and cons and also compare our reviews. So now when we're already at a little bit higher speed, we're still in the sports mode, we can even put the suspension stiffer with a separate button ourselves, by the way, it's also possible. So sports mode again, see also the car shifts down itself. I can also do it on the shifting pedals, for example, go to the fourth or even the third gear, and then from 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour, give it another go. Plop, and that's again 150 in kilometers. Really fun to use the shifting pedals here. A lot of quality there too. And again, rather calm feeling, although at higher speeds. The ACC also works at those high speeds, it's no problem, by the way. And it's also very reliable overall. So, yes, it's a real Porsche from the driving feeling. Has enough power. You do feel somewhat as an experienced driver that two cylinders are missing somewhat. I think you can also easily live with that. But I think it only makes sense if you keep the extras, the other extras, a little bit lower, that you can still achieve a realistic entry price and not a price like this very test vehicle here. So what do you think about the Porsche Macan here in driving and about this small Porsche engine question? And now to our conclusion for today with the Porsche Macan here in the recent facelift and also the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Exterior-wise, one of the sleekest SUVs in this mid-size SUV segment, so to me still a beauty. The facelift changes, it's a matter of taste, maybe a little bit more elegant here with these new daytime running lights. I mean, why not, but not the biggest change. The big change is really on the interior with this new infotainment system. I think that's good, especially the CarPlay integration is a little bit better than before, and also you just have, the wider screen can do more things. Still a lot of buttons left there too. Great build quality also in the interior. You also get some nice Alcantara seats, even just as a base trim, and you can also save some money, and that would also be my tip, because, well, this engine here, yes, it's still a real Porsche performance-wise. Of course, you don't have the same one-to-one, same performance as with the bigger engine. And also maybe the bigger engine gives you a little bit more confidence on the road and maybe a little bit more sound. But still, if you just ask about the performance, that's just it. My tip here again, don't go for such big wheels here, or pick the air suspension also. That's a very good feature. Other than that, you really have to pay attention the car does not get too expensive, because, well, if you stick rather to the base price, then it might make sense also to keep with the base engine. But then again, if you spec a car like this and make it so expensive, then it's the question if you can also top up with the next engine. So of course, I want to hear your opinion here on the Porsche Macan with the facelift, and also the question 2-liter versus 3-liter and also 4-cylinder versus 6-cylinder. What do you think, guys? This one here is the GLC facelift. That means we'll tell you all about the changes it has here. Second reason is this one is a GLC 300, a very famous, very common petrol engine worldwide. We had the 63 so far in the facelifted version, but this one here, of course, a little bit more relevant to even more buyers. Third reason, We will compare it also a little bit to the BMW X3. I drove that one 2 days ago, a main competitor of this one here. And I tell you, which one is better in, which field here and there. This will be very interesting. And the fourth one, I also recently drove the GLE, the bigger brother, so let me say it's GLE, to this one, and we'll also compare then, if you think about, going this or that one, what are the differences there. So very interesting comparing aspects also in this episode here today. Mostly I'll comment it during the driving part, and also something, on the interior as well. So let's go with everything of that, all the information, all the fun in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go. Here in the front we can see main change with the facelift are those new daytime running lights together with new headlamps. Standard now LED, optional, the one you can see here, the multi-beam LED for more high beam support. This here in the standard line has this dual horizontal fin grille. In the AMG line it would have this diamond pin grille, which would be my favorite as for the exterior design. Pretty interesting design, and it's here, however, in chrome, looks pretty elegant. Also interesting with those holes there in the lower part. So, but you can definitely change the design around just a little bit. The big Mercedes star is two-dimensional because it hides the sensors. And for example, also important, the autonomous emergency brake is standard, but we can also expect that. And also the Distronic, the adaptive cruise control, has been updated now with the facelift, and there's also a new trailer maneuvering assist. 4.65 m, 15'3" or 183 inches is the length of the GLC SUV. It's also available as a GLC Coupe, which would have the main difference that it has a falling roofline right there. Then wheels start from 17 to 19 inch in the normal GLC specs, which you can see here, the 19 inch ones in the AMG line. There's 19 or 20 inch, so a little bit bigger, and the GLC 63 even goes up to 21 inch, which is then very massive for this mid-size SUV. Then we also have this optional side step. It's very interesting, pretty cool design element, even if it's not maybe that practical. And it's pretty cool when it has, it's mirrored in the freshly cleaned paint here in the lower part. That looks quite fancy then. Other than that, I like it with the elegant chrome frames around the windows and this typical bended L shape that the GLC has right there, together with some slight strong shoulders. Overall a very elegant design. What's your take on that? In the rear we can now see a modern tail lamp signature here. This is definitely fancier, so that's the main facelift change. GT 300 badge. Overall then, I think, not too much screaming out in the rear, rather round design. And the lower end here, this is typical fake exhaust tip. There's nothing in it, so the real exhaust underneath, yeah, dirt, fake exhaust, Ajlan and Autogefühl. And by the way, suspension information, there's a standard suspension, then a little bit higher one for like soft off-road situations for a couple of €100. Same goes for the sport suspension, which goes lower. And then more sophisticated suspension choices. Adaptive suspension is available for a little bit more than €1,000 extra or dollars. And then more than 2,000 extra is then the air suspension, which is also built in this car here today. So there are a couple of other competitors who have that, but not so many. So this is also one of the unique selling points of this car, and we'll test that comfort, of course, later on. Here we go with the engine. Yay, hydraulic struts. Love that. But I mean, for a vehicle that is between 40 and 80k, we can expect that. So 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol engines like today also. There's a GLC 200 with around 200 horsepower and a GL3 300 with about 250 horsepower. 255 in US, 258 in Europe, so they differ just a little bit. 6.2 seconds is the acceleration figure. And here in the all-wheel drive today, in the US, it's also available as rear-wheel drive. And new with the facelift is that those two engines, the 2-liter 4-cylinder engines, come with an MHEV system, 48-volt board net
for more recuperation, and also those sailing or coasting functions, talking about more about that when we drive the car very soon. And still waiting for the update of the GLC 43. Maybe it's there if you watch the review later on. This one is a 3-liter V6 with 362 horsepower, but that one not facelifted yet at this moment when we record the video. And then already facelifted, also there's a review of that, the GLC 63, the V8 bi-turbo. The 43 also has a bi-turbo, by the way. So the V8 4-liter in the GLC 63 with 476, or in the S version 410 horsepower. And then there are also diesels available, 200D with 163 horsepower, 220D with 194 horsepower, and 300D with 245 horsepower. So those ones are diesel then for Europe. And last but not least, there's now also the GLC 300E PHEV. Was called 350E before. They changed the name now, so it's a new plug-in hybrid, and really love to test that one at a later stage. It's a petrol plug-in hybrid that could be a good alternative for better fuel economy. Now to the interior, we see here high-class Artico leatherette top cover. Then we have a matte wood inlet, which is pretty classic and also sophisticated. Galvanized buttons all over the place. Is a very good build quality, and also reasonable door pockets in lower end. Then today we have a mix of brown and beige for the interior. Yeah, I think that's a matter of taste. Here you can see the instruments, all digital now, optional with this facelift, soon more to that, but you can see that at the moment it's all shut off. And then those seats here, again today in beige, but the animal skin spec, how do you see that? They have a little bit more elements here, those elements you can see there and count. If it would be the Artico sustainable and animal friendly leatherette seat, then it would have, I think, 5 elements in this back part, so that's how you can visually differentiate them. The Artico seat's really high class, and in Europe, especially Germany, you can get also a fabric base seat. Then you can get fabric on the inside and leatherette on the outside, which would be an awesome mix. And then also in the US, you can get a full Artico seat. And the cool thing, they offer it in black, beige, gray, brown and red. So Mercedes offers one of the widest choices of different, more sustainable interior materials. Really well done as for the choice. And Dynamica on the inside, microfiber, and Artico on the outside would be for the AMG line. Then you have a little bit sportier and a little bit stickier on the seat when you go into those corners. Phew, yeah, so many things to tell you about the seating choices. You should check out the configurator or the build, how you call it in the US, and just play around with that a little bit. That's really a lot of fun in this case here also with the GLC. The new steering wheel with the facelift, you can see here left side is for the cruise control now, not a separate column. It's easier to set, and also those touch field, right button for the right thumb right there. This is then to control the right screen, and left thumb, left button for the left screen. This is also new. Now let's get inside. Pretty easy entry. You already have an upright SUV seating position. That's cool. Somewhat similar to the BMW X3 as for the height, overall position and so on. Steering wheel has an electric function here. That's not based, that's an option. So it goes in and out and also up and down quite a lot actually. Seat control here at the inside of the doors, which is typical on Mercedes. Hard to do it while reviewing and while sitting here. If you compare it to the GLE bigger, higher, feels a little bit more open and sophisticated as for that. But just from that you have more space. The quality of materials is quite similar in GLC and in GLE. That's different as for the X3 versus X5, where the X5 really has a wider span, wider distance to the X3. Definitely very interesting. But feeling very, very cozy and comfortable in here. Also because you can put the seating area a little bit longer here, and if you have different seat cover, by the way, it won't change necessarily the seat form. There are different seat forms also available, but then this one here, the very same seat form is also available and with different material. So overall, very good impression at first, and a little bit more sophisticated in general to the pre-facelift because of this new steering wheel and also the screens we have here, and we'll of course turn them on when we have the real cockpit perspective from behind. So welcome to this interior. Let's turn everything on. You start with analog gauges on the left and optional those full digital 12.3 inch now with the facelift. And on the right side you start with a smaller 7-inch screen and optional this 10.25 inch screen. And both feature the MBUX, this new voice input system where you can, for example, say, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help
drive me to Berlin."
I am starting route guidance to Berlin.
So that's really perfect. You can change temperature, turn on off head-up display, even open and close the sunroof and so on. The best system there is on the market, and BMW on
Please proceed to
place
the
2 at the
highlighted
moment.
route.
So they're newest only in the big cars, not in the X3. So the new BMW natural voice input system also pretty cool. So that's one thing. Soon more deals to each of those screens. And again here the steering wheel, which is a little bit more fancy than before. Volume control here on the right side, and here with my right thumb I can control the right screen, and then you can also see how that works. But redundant controls I can also do it like here with a touch or touchscreen, and this is of course also one of the big news. And then here in the lower console I can use this touchpad, that's also an option, and I can write an address there too. This is possible. And then with the left thumb I can control stuff here in the digital instruments and also change the styles and so on. So overall pretty fancy, and I think the facelift did a lot of really nice stuff here, and especially with the wooden decals here. This is like a matte wood here, you can also hear that. That's really cool. And still manual climate unit to be able to control that while driving a little bit better. GPS hotkey, I also like to have it very well reachable here. Then this lower part you slide open, and you have USB-C port now for your smartphone, for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connection, but also an inductive charging pad, but it doesn't make any sense if you don't have wireless connection. Some cup holders, and last but not least, in the middle part here, typically it slides open, and then 2 more USB-C devices underneath with some decent space. And they're going all the way USB-C now, definitely. And now to those digital instruments here. Yeah, we can also rev it up then, right there. And interesting thing is here, for example, you can have the fuel economy then right there. This is our realistic fuel economy at the moment. And then you can also have some GPS input here. If there is the road map, then you also see a more sophisticated stuff in there. You can change this head-up display settings, or also the complete design of this one here. For example, to sportier gauges like this, and also progressive. And the cool thing is, here in the GLC, it loads way faster than in the E-Class or in the GLE with the digital instruments. Probably because it's a little bit easier set up or something. I like it, it's more progressive. And the head-up display right there, the speed, you can also see the allowed speed and also some GPS information. So it's a very nice option. And the speed itself is the crispest, clearest one of that part. The other parts maybe a little bit out of focus from time to time, but overall it's still very helpful. And some more details about this screen. For example, let's take a look at the GPS up close. So it's a nice visualization, and also zoom in and out, and usually also quite responsive. And the Apple CarPlay integration looks like this. Does not use all the way off the screen, but mostly the CarPlay is also not the widest screen format. And this optional Bermesser sound system here is delivering a very crystal clear sound. Awesome. The 3D sound system, which is available for the E-Class or the GLE, is a little bit better even, but this one here already at a very, very high level. And there you go back to the normal Mercedes model, Mercedes menu. And here, for example, you can also check some engine data. If the engine is then on, you can play around with that. Yeah, here we go with the engine torque. So a lot of things you can set. And what's also very nice is this comfort features, where in this case you even have option again a massage, which is very rare for this segment. Of course, again, a coast-worthy option. That feels pretty nice. It's nice, yeah, pretty cool. Not exactly that cool as you would have in a GLE, where you have like more single dots in there in the seat, but it's already quite fancy. But you can of course also live without it. And ambient lighting is also very nice. It's that blue, of course. Here you can see also something of that already in the interior. Can change the color right there. and of course always brightness all the way up. Yay! The rear view camera is quite good as well too, by the way. Also shows you those helping lines, they adapt, and then you also have this drone view from above. But you can also set it to different views here on the right side, like to, you know, all the way rear, for example, or that one here. And I want to show you also another example of this one here, so where the tires are being seen left and right. For example, if you approach a car wash and then you don't want to damage your wheels, then you can really adapt that. Yeah, that's cool, right? And also to the front view camera. So, but that's of course the optional, most sophisticated camera system there is available. And here you can always see that this car has air suspension, because with this button you can raise the car for some situations where you need more ground clearance. This one is a driving mode selector. I will also browse through that when we drive the car later on. What I also like is this upper light area, because it has this crystal effect, you know, so pretty cool. And that's here where you open the panoramic roof, like this. And so you see it's split between front and rear. And there you can leave some more light in. And this is the cover, by the way. So there would also be a cover available for really, really hot days, like this, and then just press once more, like this, and here the cover goes through, and same happens also for the rear. Now to the rear, also with a nice soft touch article on the inside doors and the matte wood. That's awesome. Mr. Sound system here as well, and yeah, it does exactly fit. You know, those gaps here in the back of the seat, they are really helpful to give you some more knee room. It does exactly fit then for 4 tall adults. You should always raise the front seat a little bit, that it's easy with your feet underneath. And also headroom wise, although this panoramic roof, it does not go all the way over the vehicle. It's split here in between, but then you have another glass area right there, so leaves a lot of light in, and then still some headroom left. And it's actually quite cozy in here. This, of course, and if you compare the former GLK, this one here works very well in the rear. Although it's not the best package, so we have shorter cars and have more legroom, but still you get along very well, and it's also definitely decently comfortable back here. What else do we have? Isofix at the outside parts each. Then you have a cubby hole underneath this armrest, or cup holders in the front, which you can fold out, and you can also get a rear climate unit, and also 2 USB-C supplies in the rear. That's also new with the facelift. Here we go. Trunk can also be opened with a foot kick opening mechanism. Then you can actually lock this lower part. That's a pretty cool function. Then we have more storage underneath, and that's pretty square dimensions. And I really love this top cover, which has rails on the side, and it's very, very clean solution. On the right side to flip the seat, and also on the left side, together with, when you have the air suspension, you can also lower the car just a little bit. But what I want to do first is give you the measurement to the normal seating area. So this would be here then about 90 centimeters, a little bit more in length, whereas we have a little bit more than 1 meter in width, and actually significantly more, almost 1 meter and 10. And this is really cool. So good dimensions for this trunk. Also in the height here, this is about 40 centimeters to the top cover, and to the overall height, this one here is about 75 centimeters. And the cool thing is that when you put a cabin trolley right here in this trunk, it is still possible exactly to close the cover here cleanly above it. And now with the X3, for example, that the cover here had to go a little bit lower right here in this area. But it also, you know, had the additional height for the replacement tires. You should check that out to, you know, just to mention it. And then if we also flip the other part, there's a very cool mechanism here. Usually also an option depending on the market. But then, you know, see, everything is easily flowed and all goes all the way flat. And this one here is a little bit less than 1 meter and 80 in length. So overall, a very versatile car. I like that. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Mercedes GLC in this facelift version. And as I told you initially, I'm going to talk about how does it feel differently from the pre-facelift. How does it feel differently from the BMW X3, one of the main competitors, and also from the Mercedes GLE, the bigger brother, if you're thinking about, you know, comparing those. And one of the changes here is that those 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol engines and now MHEV, so mild hybrid systems. So with a battery that is bigger than a normal car battery. In the eco mode, the throttle input is being drawn back and more attention to better fuel economy and so on, earlier shifting up and I can see if there's a power output from this MHEV system or if there is, this by the way, the warning system here, the blind spot monitor, and if I set the turning indicator, then I also get an acoustic warning. Pretty good system, and you already experienced that as for the assistance now. So when I'm rolling down here now in the eco mode, what's the car doing? It's recuperating a little bit, but also rolling. So it's more using a rolling. If I go, for example, to the comfort mode, it doesn't change so much as for the recuperation because it's still rolling. If I go to the sports mode, I have actually more engine brake because the car is, a gear lower, and the interesting thing is, it's charging more. So this is really interesting. I would have. Wait a minute. Now it's. But now it's charging more in the eco mode. So not always sure why is it doing that way or that way. Because when we were at the beginning of the hill, the car wasn't charging that much. Maybe it's a thing, but when the car realized we're going down it for a longer time or so, that then the recuperation sets in, and this is really interesting because now the charging is less again, and now we are in the sailing mode. This is very interesting. So the RPMs dropped to 0, and now we're rolling, and the engine is shut off. So, and this is a thing that is predominantly happening in this eco mode. So now we're sailing. Now I want to increase the speed once again a little bit more. That won't work that well when you are in the Distronic, in the cruise control mode, by the way. And I mean, that's really interesting because the sailing or coasting thing is something that should be favored by this MHEV system. So that's the reason to do that. And of course, using the recuperation then to get you some electric boost. I mean, for performance reasons, that's one thing. And the other thing is also when you are, getting started just from the traffic light, that you can save some fuel by adding this, electric power to it, which was again gained from recuperation earlier. So yeah, definitely very interesting first impressions. The question is always, does it make a huge difference in the fuel economy overall? And so far, from all our tests, we could say, if you have a proper plug-in hybrid system with a good recuperation, then this even made sense for the fuel economy, even if you were not recharging all the time. But those MHEV systems with the smaller batteries, on paper they were usually better, but then in real-life driving tests, usually it didn't play such a role for the fuel economy, and here as well. So, well, now in winter time, but even without using AC, we had numbers on long-term driving, which were actually a little bit worse than 9 liters or more kilometers, worse than 26 mpg US, 31 mpg UK. So that's already something good if you reach that, but usually the numbers were even a little bit worse. That is a little bit worse than we recently had with the BMW X3 with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. So the BMW engine seems to be a little bit more economical in this case, but not too big of a difference. And again, it doesn't seem that this MHEV system would play a major role. I will check it once again when we're finished with this round, definitely on the fuel economy. Other than that, the facelift didn't change much as for the driving characteristics. I mentioned earlier that there are different suspensions available, base suspension, off-road or bad road suspension, which sits a little bit higher, sport suspension, which sits a bit lower. And then that's just a couple of €100 extra each, like 300 and 400. And then if you're going adaptive, like a little more than 1,000 euros or dollars, then you go with the adaptive suspension, which is already a nice choice. Definitely have more variety in the comfort and sportiness. And then this one, which we have inbuilt here today, more than 2,000 euros extra, is the air body controls. So this one is the air suspension, and quite exclusively also for this segment. The Audi Q5 does offer that, for example, too. But the BMW X3, for example, not. Well, the adaptive suspension of the BMW X3 is really very, very good, so you're not missing an air suspension. And BMW has a very good compromise between sportiness and comfort. Here, so the compromise is better with the BMW. But here, the overall comfort is even a little bit better when you have the air suspension. So picking the air suspension would be one major argument for going with the Mercedes GLC, because they have this very soft carpet-like ride, so and that's really something very cool. If you own such a car for 10 years or so, then you might think about long-term repair costs on the air suspension that will get very expensive. If you're not afraid of that, then you can go for it. And you have enjoyed great comfort until then. Or if you lease the car, then it won't be such a problem anyway. But this is something really cool, to be in this mid-size SUV here and have such a very comfortable air suspension. This is really very, very cool. It's also pretty silent as for the noise insulation. That's also what I like about this car, and it fits very well. The steering is pretty light, but still doesn't feel unnatural, so everything is transported to the road. There's no dead zone of the steering. It's pretty cool, and with this new infotainment system, with the digital instruments in this facelift, it gives me also a more modern and more sophisticated experience when driving the car. So that's something where the facelift definitely helped, if you are opting for that stuff. So that's not that it would come directly as standard equipment. Yeah, we know that. That's what Mercedes does. They just want more money from you. That's the downside of those even fancier things, definitely. So both BMW X3 and Mercedes GLC, they are really excellent SUVs and definitely among the top in their segment in many, many ways. So again, I conclude BMW best compromise, sportiness and comfort, a lot of driving fun. I would say in the sporty sense, the X3 is a little bit more fun to drive. The GLC, however, top of the comfort, especially suspension-wise, when you pick the optional air suspension here, and then also better in the comfort overall. Again, but then it's not that sporty and doesn't, it's not that much fun to drive it. It's still fun, yes, but if you compare it to the X3. And if you then think about, can it be a little bit sportier with the compromise? The GLC 43, for example, which also has the air suspension, but is then set on a very stiff note, that I felt for everyday driving was too harsh. And we actually also got some customer feedbacks who said, a test ride said, I experienced the same thing, Thomas, and therefore I went then, for example, with the GLC 300. Although, someone wanted the 43, So I think if you go for the high-end top sports model, you might want or expect this very harsh and stiff ride. But if you're going for those, semi-performance models, I think you want a better compromise for your everyday driving. You want a little bit more power, but you still want the great comfort this car has to offer. And here again, it's such a pleasure to enjoy this comfort here. Silence again, good noise insulation. The engine is very well insulated from the cabin. That's really something really amazing, and is really a very, very tough question if you ask me. GLC or X3, which one would I go for? It's really hard, the X3 is a lot of fun to drive. I really also like the very central interior they have here, also again with the facelift changes. The voice input system, because here they put the newest one in the X3, there's a newer one available for the bigger BMW models. So this one here has the more sophisticated voice input system. And whereas X5, whereas GLE, meanwhile I have the impression that the X5 is better built as for the interior quality. Here, GLC versus X3, I think it's the other way around. The GLC somehow has, better build quality to my, subjective impression than the X3. And both, definitely on a high level, but we also know, for example, where the GLC is being built in Germany, in northern Germany, which is you know, they're very good as for the quality over the past years. And the funny thing is, like, just like 1 or 2 weeks ago, there was this German TÜV, so like, you know, where they do the annual checkups or 2-year checkups of the cars, was this test, and the GLC was the winner in the best reliability index quality overall. Like, not in the segment, yes, also in the segment of course, but overall from all cars being tested. Whereas but that's not the case with every Mercedes car, you know. With the GLE, they had some quality problems. They changed suppliers now in the production for you know, in the US. They were brought over to Germany to fix them actually. So there was a hell lot of effort, and so obviously they got new suppliers there now for better quality. But again, the GLC has been proven to be very reliable. If you have been a GLC customer so far, please share your experience. If it's good or bad, please just share your experience, that we can either prove the point or maybe there's also something, you know, which didn't go that well. Would be really looking forward to that. And again, I don't feel like, you know, I need to rush things here. This is very smooth ride again, so enjoyable. And yeah, those aspects I mentioned, I really love the X3, but in this case, maybe then it's the GLC for me. Predominantly because I enjoy this very relaxing ride again when I go for the air suspension, which I think I would go because that's also one of the unique selling points of this car. Again, very smooth as for the steering wheel, even though it's not the sportiest one. Upright seating position, very comfortable on the long run. And I can, you know, when I want to have the head-up display on, I'll just say, hey Mercedes, head-up display on, and then it's already happening, you know.
What can I do for you?
Head-up display on.
The head-up display is on.
So then it was already on in this case, but I mean, that's pretty cool. Natural voice input and some stuff you don't have to search in the menu, and that's already it. So that's also very, very well done. The engine is very silent, very calm, especially when you are in the cruising modes all the time. I mean, the MF changes, yeah, it's nice. You can have some recuperation, but it's not like a major game changer. We've been running downhill now quite a lot of time. That's why the fuel economy is quite good at the moment. But still, that's, you know, around 9 liters. Although we have been, what's happening here? It's an accident. So although it was downhill, you know, a lot of times, that should be way better now, you know. So fuel economy, not happy with that. Would have expected more from this MF system. So sports mode, by the way, when I mean, sports plus, there's no one here at the moment. Let's just accelerate a little bit, see how much power this car has for you. So let's just go. So that's 70 kilometers an hour already. That went quite quick, and the absolute figure to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour would be 6.2 seconds. So yes, very silent and refined, this engine, but if you want the power, wow, you have it. And that felt to me even a little bit more spontaneous than the X3 I've just ridden like yesterday. Yeah, yesterday or like 2 days ago in the US. Maybe in this case, yeah, the MF is not that important for the fuel savings, but for the power boost. I mean, this one here has about 250 horsepower, but then, you know, there are a little bit more horsepower added by this, you know, by this MF system. So this seems to work actually, you know, with the extra electric boost. So I was expecting predominantly fuel economy changes, and not that it would change much in the power, but yeah, it seems also I get all the EQ power at the moment now. But actually it's the other way around. It's a very interesting finding of this driving part. So it's more obviously about power than about better fuel economy. Pretty interesting, yeah. And we had the same experience also with the Mercedes C-Class, which is sharing a lot of parts here, of course, with the GLC. That's why they also call it C. Also, same result with the MF system, that the fuel economy wasn't really that good. But again, for power, why not? And yeah, this Sport Plus mode, you know, really gives you some very decent output. Pretty nice, definitely. This one here, this car, by the way, also still a classic all-wheel drive system. So rear-wheel bias as well. You also see that, for example, the GLC 300 is also available as rear-wheel drive only in the US, but only in the US. But that's also, always a hint that it's not front plus rear, but rather rear plus front, But this one here, rather a classic all-wheel drive, the real deal. And in Europe and Germany, you only can get this one here, the GLC, as all-wheel drive. So let's maybe go to the normal comfort mode and have some more motorway ride here. And let's go to 100 kilometers. Getting on and also setting the cruise control. It's an adaptive cruise control built in here, so I can also set the distance to the car in front of me, and then the distance is being kept, so it's pretty reliable. And we also have a lane keeping assist. Do not put your hands off the steering wheel. I'm always ready to intervene, just demonstration purposes now. Professional rider, don't attempt, disclaimer. So here now the car already complains I should put something at the steering wheel, but you see the car is being kept in the lane, so that's also done very well. And you should keep your hands on the steering wheel, and then it's a little bit more at ease. So definitely for longer motorway journeys, I can relax a little bit more here in the GLC, and probably at this point in this segment it would be a little bit more important to me than sportiness, but maybe it's the other way around for you. So pretty cool overall. Then to me, driving wise, among the top in the segment, if not the best, especially if you think about comfort. Then if you think about the GLE, the bigger brother, which I also recently drove, and so I can also very well compare that. We also at 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour, perfectly silent in this interior. This is also awesome. Good feeling also for the brakes, very natural feeling for the brakes. So how you can, fine tune that. And then again, recuperation is being used. So for the GLE discussion, bigger versus smaller. If you have the air suspension inbuilt in the GLC, it feels like less of a difference, because quite often when you compare those mid-size against the full-size, that's the European definitions for, GLC versus GLE, X3 versus X5, Q5 from the Audi versus Q7, then you feel quite often a very big difference, because the bigger ones offer the air suspension and you have more this smooth carpet ride, whereas those ones here are, not rough, but in comparison, or maybe just offer an adaptive suspension, which is already very good, but you feel that as a difference. This is even out here a little bit, so the riding comfort suspension-wise is almost equal to the GLE. What is different to the GLE is that in the GLE you sit higher, you have a little bit better overview because of sitting higher. On the other hand, the overview is worse when you think about how long and big the car is, and the hood and so on. So here, for example, I can better watch over the hood, although I'm sitting not that high. So it's not entirely black and white, it's, some there, some there. This one here, of course, feels a little bit lighter, a little bit easier to control. You can ease it around the corners a little bit better. And GLE then again gives you a little bit more, huge, sophisticated driving feel. So the question is, how much money do you want to spend? How much space do you have in the city when parking, in your garage, in your basement garage, in front of your house or flat or something? So that could be a very crucial point. And because this one here already feels that comfortable. The funny thing is here also that GLC versus GLE, both are excellent cars, but maybe in this case here I would say I would take the advantages of having a more compact vehicle, a little bit more flexible in the city and so on, in comparison to the bigger GLE. And because they're both set on the comfort, that I feel sportier in this one here. With the BMWs, they are sportier in general, so I don't feel the the urge to go for the smaller model there, that it's sporty, So the X5 still feels quite sporty for its size, and therefore I don't miss the X3 sporty driving feeling, you know what I mean? And the X5 also has a bigger difference in the interior build quality. Here with the GLC versus GLE, I don't see so big difference in the interior build quality. whereas X3 with X5 is a bigger difference. So to me, between GLC and GLE, I would probably go with the GLC, save some money, be a little bit more flexible in the city. Between X3 and X5, I would rather go probably with the bigger, with the X5, because, you know, more elaborate as for the functions, better infotainment system, better voice input, better build quality on the interior, more comfort, yet not so much less sportiness. So that's also, you know, very interesting finding. You know, I'm discovering that myself at the moment as well. You know, so yeah. So it's X5 and GLC. That would be now my decisions then, definitely. And yeah, very interesting also to me for that finding. It's always cool to talk about the difference of of each of those cars. So then told you what is different with the GLC facelift. You know, just minor things driving wise, and more the impression you get from those more elaborate things. Then again, in general, how it's positioned in this segment, and then talked about the difference GLC X3 and also the difference GLC GLE. Hope you really enjoyed this, you know, comparing insight for you today to make the driving part even more interesting. And please leave me your feedback in the comments also about those individual aspects, and would be really looking forward also, which one would you actually go for, GLC or GLE, GLC or X3 or X5. So let's exchange some opinions there in the comment section. Really looking forward to read that. You know that I'm really trying to read every single comment, although it's like a couple of hours work per day and 365 days. Yes, 365 days a year. So I'm really spending a lot of my personal time also in your comments, just also to give you a feeling that your opinion and, you know, your experience is really also highly appreciated here. So, and then let's head over to the final conclusion. And now to our conclusion for the day with the Mercedes GLC here as the facelift. Exterior changes, not that much, of course. Yeah, lamps, new LED standard is good. Yeah, the daytime running light, or let's say like the signature in the tail lamps, also look more modern, a little bit cooler. Overall, an elegant design, definitely overall for the car. Interior, high build quality, and also vast choices of animal-friendly material. That is really where they are leading, together with Tesla, of course, who made that standard anyway. Also with those infotainment systems upgrades, this is also pretty fancy. If you go for that one, it's an option, yes. But the MBUX is gladly standard, so with this voice input and so on, this is really leading on the market at the moment. And also some decent space they have there, especially flexible trunk system. That's pretty cool when you have that electric flipping system especially. Driving wise, so great, very well insulated. And wow, the air suspension is really so comfortable in this segment, leading in this segment to me. As for the comfort, yeah, maybe the BMW X3, for example, is a bit more sportier fun, but this one here, the comfort king then as for that. Definitely one of the best cars overall in the segment, and I also mentioned that in the driving part, recently at least for a German rating, you know, with the TÜV ratings, so where they check the cars on you know, mostly 2 or 3 year basis. This one here also scored the best result overall from all cars that have been tested. So it seems also to be a very reliable one. Then also, if you think about the engine, now with the new MHEV system, was a little bit disappointed that the fuel economy wasn't better. So that was actually one of the very few bad results about this review. However, the boost was a little bit better. So I felt that, you know, it was a little bit faster, more explosive as for the acceleration with this additional electric boost. So for solving the fuel economy problem, that's maybe where the new PHEV could step in, the 300e, and I hope to test that one also at a later stage. Now I'm also looking forward to your comments, and also told you a little bit more GLC versus GLE. In this case, this one here, especially with the facelift now, offers so many stuff that GLE is also offering, that the difference between GLC and GLE is somewhat diminishing. Of course, there's some differences, also mentioned those, but has been smaller now. The BMW X3, and we will reward you with the full review here on the exterior, interior and the driving experience. And since we've already driven the X1 and the X4, so the two siblings, one closer, one a little bit farther away, we'll also tell you more about the difference on those vehicles. As always, join us in Full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go.
The new X3 is characterized by a very big front kidney. In the middle part, by the way, there's this front camera system, very interesting to look at it later. And also the BMW double kidney has this active system that it opens or shuts on the inside depending on the cooling air needed for the engine. Those headlamps have a very interesting characteristical LED daytime running light structure. They come standard with LED. Optionally, you can also get the adaptive LED system. This is the so-called X line, so has this crossover look, and also with the gray or silver accentuations already in the lower bumper. We'll also see some more later on. And this one here is also the so-called Terra brown color. It's really hard to see as it's pretty dark. It's an interesting color. And from some shades you can also mistake it for a wine, dark wine red. But then when you come closer, you see it's a brown color. 4.70 meters or 15'4" is the total length of this vehicle. Here the all-new X3. 4.70 meters it is, by the way, Chris. Chris recently told us that he's always missing the meters figure when I'm running in there from the side of the picture. So here the X3 and the X4 is the same length. Just the X4 is dropping down here in this coupe style form. You can also check out the full review of the X4 later on after we finish with this one. Also, if you compare it to the X1, this one here is 27 centimeters longer. Why is that? Well, mainly because there's a longer front hood. Here you have the longitudinal engine mount, where you can also fit the 6-cylinder engines. The X1 with a front wheel driven platform, you have the transverse building platform for the engines in the very front. The rim size start from 18 inch, go up to 21 inch. Those ones here are 19 inch. I think it's a good compromise, good choice. Maybe you think they look a little bit small here. The reason is we already have winter tires mounted here. In this case then the rims already appear a little bit smaller. This side breather here, air breather at the BMW, sometimes it's open and reduces the wind turbulences inside the wheel arches, but here just a design element, it's closed from the back part. The X-Line again features the silver contrast as the side skirt in the lower part right there, and overall the rest of the design is rather conservative, upright windows, but this is supposed to bring you a lot of room on the interior. We'll see later on if this is really true. And the very cool feature you can see, for example, in your garage are those wings or wing stripes that are projected. In the rear, the new generation has become more beautiful, I think, because those tail lamps are more horizontally drawn and have this new daytime running light signature. I think that's a good design job. But overall, you see exterior and also some of the interior, I can already tell you, they rather have a conservative setup here with the X3. But that also doesn't annoy the so far customers because it's not so much different than the previous generation. They have real exhaust pipes on the exterior. You have to mention that nowadays. So nice with chrome there, both pipes. And the silver X-Line contrast here again. Overall, I think it is basically, yes, a conservative layout, but it just fits. This is a mid-sized SUV and still has this real SUV look. Wow, this has been properly cleaned. I love to take a look at those very cleaned up engine covers. Twin power turbo. So today we have the 30i, that's a 2-liter 4-cylinder with 252 horsepower, 6.3 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. This engine is also available at the 20i with the 184 horsepower spec. And then there's the M40i, the 3-liter 6-cylinder R6, 360 horsepower and 4.8 seconds to 100 kilometers an hour. And with that one you can also boost the price easily from this 40,000 base price to, well, 70,000 or something. And then there are the diesels, 20D, 2-liter, 190 horsepower, 25D, 213 horsepower. Then the 30D, that's the 3-liter 6-cylinder with 265 horsepower. Or then with 326 horsepower as the M40D.
Let's take a look at the interior together. Brushed aluminum decor style, that's sporty and classy at the same time. Leatherette cover, soft touch at the top part of the inside doors. Galvanized window levers, so they really stepped up the game in the interior quality here with the new generation. Still room for bigger bottles at the inside of the doors. Then this one is the X-Line, also with this entry cap there in the lower part. Then this is the new interior. There's a steering wheel that has also updated buttons left and right with better quality. Leatherette cover at the top of the dashboard. Then this mix of some analog parts but overall digital instruments. Those analog parts are basically those half circles around. Then the seats. You can see they have a lot of different forms and structures on the seats. If you want to avoid the full animal skin package we have in this test vehicle. In Germany, most European markets, you can also get base fabric seats or also a fabric animal skin mix. And in the US you get the Sensatec, that's a good leatherette, in black or in beige color. Now let's get inside, and it's such an easy entry. It feels already like a well grown up SUV, so you don't have to go a segment higher to have this feeling. You already get that here with a mid-size SUV in the X3. Comfortable upright seating position. If you compare it to the X4, you have more room, especially as for the A-pillar, because the X4 is flatter. This one here way more spacious, really feels good, and you feel immediately at home. If you compare to the X1, you sit higher in the X3, that's the difference. And also the front hood is more voluminous, so a little bit limited view here to the front lower part, but it's still quite okay to see. Since all the windows are standing upright, you also have a good round view all around you. That's quite good. So then, control of the steering wheel, quite a smooth technique, and the electric support of the seat. You start, of course, without all those extras, have to pay a lot extra. That's always with the premium manufacturers. Then you can also manually lengthen the seating lower area. I think overall you can easily find a good seating position here. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1". I still got a lot of questions. Thomas, how tall are you? Well, just a notification again, we say that in every interior part of every single review since 5 years. So, and now, that's why I always say, watch also in full length, please. Thank you. Now, so I still have a lot of headroom here left, so you could also easily go for the panoramic roof, which is an option, not built in here today, but even if you have that one, you will still fit in the front as a tall person. So let's wake up this interior. Leatherette, soft touch at the top part here of the dashboard. Really nicely done. This is the maximum screen that is available, 10.25 inch. Soon to the screen and to the instruments more details. The steering wheel, this is the normal one I would go for, because the M Sport steering wheel somehow is asynchronous, and I'm not sure. I rather like it synchronous here with the steering wheel. What about you? Also with the heated steering wheel function, really cool to have that one in winter times. You could pick up the phone here or use the voice command on the right side, left side for example for assistance systems and cruise control. You still have a separate climate unit. Let's turn on the engine and you can see more of that. It's good that you can easily control that while driving still, and you also have a CD changer and some hotkeys there you can also program. Volume knob still right there. So again, also a conservative layout here. Yeah, do we also have, yeah, this gesture control if you like to use it and if have that option. And this brushed aluminum style here is also pretty fancy. X3 logo in the lower part, you can fold open this lower part. Then there's also an inductive charging platform for your smartphone. When the blue light is flashing, it is active. Oh, there's a sharp edge right there. You should pay attention to that yourself as a customer, but also BMW maybe for further updates. USB supply in the front, adaptive cup holders, and then this automatic gear shifting lever. You just turn it back to drive or in the front for the reverse gear. Next to the driving modes, I will explain those when we drive the car, and we also have the camera system button. It's good to have it on the separate button.
And here we have the head-up display. You can also see that better in the dark with the speed, allowed speed. And if you have a GPS route set, a destination, you'll also get some GPS commands.
And one more close-up for you here as for the AC unit, also with the seat heating. So again, as I said, easy to control and also good to have a 2-zone AC when you're not really agreeing on one single temperature. And here we go with the camera system. This is the front view when you put it to D mode again. And this is the reverse view. So you can see the car that is behind you. And also then on the left side, the drone view from above. And also when I turn the steering wheel, you see that the camera switches basically the view. Looks a little bit to the right or to the left. This is really cool and helps you to ease this car around. And the infotainment system up close, you can see you also have a touchscreen function, but you can still control it with the central turning knob in the lower middle console. Really nice that the GPS works pretty well as for the visual part and also for the for the functioning. Here also you can check the consumption of the vehicle, for example, or see technology in action. If you, for example, have the sport displays, those are pretty interesting when you can turn up the power here, for example. Also, we will turn them on while we drive the vehicle. You also have those X-Drive status that you can see, for example, the inclination and also compass info. So pretty interesting things they are offering here. The smartphone connection, by the way, either possible with Bluetooth or with Apple CarPlay. Here we go. Then wireless, BMW is offering that exclusively, but no Android Auto. BMW and Porsche refuse Android Auto because they say they do not handle the data in a care way as Apple does. BMW and Porsche says. And most of you should be familiar with this turning and pressing knob. You can also write, for example, here in the top part if you are searching an address, and then also the hotkeys to each segment. And what about the voice command? Set temperature to 22 degrees.
To adjust the temperature, use the controls on the air conditioning system.
Okay, so the X3 does not have that function yet. Drive me to Berlin.
Berlin. Say yes, or select another entry from the list.
So that is working. And the middle console, also good quality. This middle armrest properly attached. And some room right there with another USB supply. Some BMW fans actually miss the wing lights, especially the wing rear lights at the exterior, but on the interior they are still present and are also among my favorite features already when they're off, when they're on like this. And here we go with the rear compartment. Interesting details here, by the way. Also soft touch leatherette cover at the inside of the doors, top part here, then this stamped X logo. So really cool that I also paid attention to details here. Well, I do exactly fit in here with my knees, but it's really close. However, well, the X5 doesn't offer so much more legroom. So legroom, not the BMW specialty, not in most vehicles. And if you now compare it again to the X1, by the way, the X1 does not have less legroom. So the package of the X1 is definitely better. It's, really a lot shorter on the exterior, but it's not shorter by no means on the interior. Headroom, still plenty left, so this is no problem. There's a hanger, by the way, for the jackets right there. You also still have those door handles. And interesting, with the lower button here, you can also change the angle of the rear bench. That's cool if you rather want to sleep or maybe want to be more active in driving, sitting more upright. That's cool to have this option. And you can also flip the seats already from here, this bench, but this will be also possible from the trunk area. Isofix on the outside parts of the seats each, and then you'll also have an armrest with cup holders. They're also adaptive somewhat, keep the stuff tight, important for the kids. And you also have a ski hatch just for loading things through.
In some of my recent videos I made some Lost reference, you know, with don't open the hatch. I think no one really got it yet. Usually I get those comments when I do some references. Still waiting for it. Maybe this time, if anyone gets the reference. And we also have this middle console. If you want, you also have a climate unit for the rear seats, as well as a 12-volt power supply. You know, there's this big key again, this computer style key, where you can also see if the, you know, what range you have, or if the car is already locked or something, or can set a preconditioning if you have the independent heating option. But you can also go just for a normal small key. Here you close the vehicle, there you open it, and you can also open the rear hatch with the left button right there. Also you can just open it right there, or then also with this foot kicking mechanism. I just kicked it with the foot in the lower end now, and there we go. And the capacity is 550 up to 1,600 liters if we flip the seats very soon. Here a cabin trolley to show you the dimensions, and you see they're very square, easier to access than in the X4, of course higher than, especially, really good. If you compare it to the capacity of the X1, by the way, just 50 liters more here, so there's not a big difference in the rear area either, but you can see those are great dimensions, very easy to fit things in there. I really like it. Also, you can put bicycles in there. Hydraulic strut. Awesome to have those features. Some more space below that option. You can also fit a replacement tire. This upper cover here does not have a direct rail, but since they have a rather smooth mechanism to actually suck it in, like this, you can see when it's not that fast and it flips back. It's quite well to control and not that wobbly than some of the other mechanisms. So think this is still quite okay. However, I still like it better when they have real rails there. Then if we flip the seats right here and here, there we go, we have it all flat. Good loading possibility. The electric seats cannot be flipped completely to the front. I think you'll be just fine with this setup. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge with the BMW X3 in this new generation. Here with the 30i, 252 horsepower, the 4-cylinder petrol engine with the turbo. So we're starting here with a little motorway ride, and one of the most important key factors of this new generation is the sound insulation has been improved significantly. At the moment 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour on the clock and it's really very silent and relaxing, super relaxing. And also if we take a comparison to the BMW X4, which is basically the same vehicle, but here you have more room here on the A-pillar, as I said earlier. You feel more like in a travel mobile, you know, like in comparison. The X4 really has this sportier approach. Also, we drove the sportier suspension there. It has a stiffer setup with the standard setup. This one here, a more comfortable suspension. I really like that. Still, it remains a rather sporty BMW SUV feeling, so you don't have a very soft carpet ride. You still see here when the lane change have a sporty approach, even if you're just in the normal comfort mode. So also in the standard setup here with winter tires, 19-inch rims, it remains sporty. But you can clearly see that the X4 steps up the sportiness. And if you would ask me, you know, if you have a special design favorite in the X4, okay, but just from driving every day, this is offering enough sportiness basically, and it just gives you some more comfort than the X4. So if comfort is really something that is very important to you, then the X3 will do better than the X4. But from the basic setup, of course, from the size and so on, they feel pretty much equal. You know, some city traffic, and now we're going a little bit slower, 50 kilometers. This is so silent in here. Really interesting. So I've been driving the all-new X4 in the States, where we had a rougher tarmac,
And here now on, let's say my standard German tarmac, which I also test with a lot of different vehicles, I can even better relate to it how silent the vehicle really is. And recently we had the Mercedes C-Class, which is in the state. Whoa, that's a interesting Halloween figure. That ghost, that looks creepy. So with the Mercedes C-Class, with the estate, I mean, yeah, this is an SUV, but price-wise, they come quite close. And interesting is that this one here is indeed way more silent. Pretty interesting. Also how the whole car feels. They have really worked on that interior. Told you that earlier, so really cool that they stepped up the game there as for the quality of the interior too. So a very relaxing, rolling, definitely in city traffic. We also have a couple of assistant systems you can easily activate or deactivate at the steering wheel. So for example the ACC. Let's get on to the right. There's a good overview in this vehicle, by the way. Now the ACC set. Distance with the car in front of me. And when the next car is coming from the left, you can also see the blind spot monitor with this yellow triangle. Pretty helpful. And it also has this active steering assist. It's also activated at the moment. You're supposed to keep your hands on the steering wheel, of course, all the time. And when the steering, you can also see in the head-up display, is turning green, then it's also actively steering with you. And soon we get to a rather faster part again. We can show you some acceleration with this very engine. If you're driving it very slowly, by the way, you can score some very good consumption figures. So just using now the steering has turned green. Now it would theoretically be steering automatically. You're not supposed to take your hands off the steering wheel, but you can see that. And that's exactly the reason. Now it turned yellow again. So there are some transitions when it's going off and on. And so you always have to be aware of that and should not fully trust that those are not fully autonomous systems yet. So if you just keep it really low key, you can score figures as low as 6 liters on 1 kilometers. But when you hammer it rather on the motorway, for example, you can go up into 8-9 liters, to 26 to 30 mpg, which is still quite decent. Since also with the 6-cylinder AJ tested earlier, it was rather like in the 11 liters on 1 kilometers or close to 20 mpg only. So those BMW engines, especially the smaller ones or the big diesels, not the V8 ones we've seen recently with the 8 series. So the smaller petrols and small and big diesel, but I really have to say it's rather the small petrol and the big diesels that score very low consumption figures with BMW. Very interesting finding for sure throughout all the different tests. So now again, cruise control. I'm not keeping any distance. I can also change the distance here at the steering wheel, and those buttons here are really very well processed. That gives you also a good feeling of controlling the car while driving. And thinking about 3-4 years back, I wouldn't have imagined that I really praised the BMW for the interior quality. They still have a very conservative layout for sure. You also realize it when driving, but it's not something super new, so you are basically getting used to it easily. And again, I'm really surprised how calm and confident the ride is. You also have this upright seating position, as you would know and expect from an SUV. It's also a couple of centimeters higher than the BMW X1, the smaller sibling. That's one of the key elements when driving the car. And also the front is longer. The reason, said earlier, longitudinal engine mount here in the X3, transverse in the X1. Now, let's go to the sport mode. In the sport mode, the gears are turned up higher, RPMs go higher. Now the car is automatically going a gear lower. And now let's do 70 kilometers to 100 kilometers. And pop. And that was already 100. So you can see with the 4-cylinder here, 252 horsepower, way more than enough power.
Now, shifting back times, that took a second, but you can also use the shifting pedals. M8, so ZF 8-speed automatic gearbox, one of the best automatic gearboxes there is on the market. Then you can also shift back here, M4. You can also see that I got the sport displays activated here in kilowatt power and Newton meters of torque. Pretty interesting for the co-driver maybe to look at. And then there's also on the other side the Eco Pro mode, which is then charging the normal small car battery. So those mild hybrid systems, which are pretty much popping up everywhere at the moment, BMW already had them for a really long time. So just charging a normal car battery, and this is then taking care, of course, of the lights and car internal electric systems, and therefore not burning much fuel because there would be a resistance the battery needs for the energy production, just taking that from recuperation. In the Eco Pro mode, the throttle input is being reduced a little bit, so you don't accelerate that hard. That saves you a little bit more fuel. And the normal comfort mode would be something, you know, just a standard one in between. So I rather stick to that usually. Well, they could also deactivate the traction control, but doesn't make much sense here on the road at the moment. And of course, this X-Drive, the all-wheel drive system, always comes with the X3. This is also this classic rear-wheel drive platform, basically. So you have a rear-wheel bias with the all-wheel drive system. Also difference to the X1, which is predominantly front-wheel driven, front plus rear. Here's rear plus front from the all-wheel drive concept. Now we're getting into a roundabout. Let's see about that. Agility. So here again, the steering wheel, yeah, luggage in the trunk is flying all over the place. So it gives me a good feeling, but it's not that I would say, it's not an SUV where I can say it's super much fun to drive it fast and sporty. And there is also an advantage then for the X1. The X1 is shorter, about 25 centimeters, and is more fun to drive. It's more agile to drive. It was a little bit stiff with the M Sport suspension though, but without it, it's a good compromise. You can still drive this car not only slowly, of course, yes, but with a little bit longer wheelbase, you rather feel that this car is set up for a more confident, calm ride on the motorway going through. This is the advantage of the X3 for sure. However, here the steering commands are quite well done. The steering also feels quite natural. Now the brakes are also applied very well. And I think they overall transport a very natural feeling of how you can control steering, brakes and throttle. So really a lot of things to be satisfied with, especially also with driving it. Again, suspension is not super soft, but also not too stiff that it would become uncomfortable. However, now when you've just driven those rather narrow corners, you feel also with the longer wheelbase, it's not a sporty, agile mid-size SUV in this base version here. Acceleration-wise, yes, but you know, in the corners there are for sure some sportier setups. For example, if you go a version above that with the 40i, but then again, if you think about, you also lose comfort in your everyday driving. So if you take that as an everyday commuter, I would rather stay with this setup here, with a normal petrol engine, with a normal suspension setup. You'll have more fun and more comfort than for that. So now to the countryside riding. I'll set again the cruise control. The head-up display is really well done, one of the best on the markets, I think, because it's very clear to read. It is multi-color, so you have good contrast. You have directly in your line of sight. It's pretty cool, and you never look down to the normal instruments. So one of the very good options for sure. The AEB, Autonomous Emergency Brake, is standard equipment with this car, luckily, and it's also how it's supposed to be. And I would really go for the blind spot monitor as an option. for the adaptive cruise control, and for the head-up display. Those would be, the most important options, because I always say, you can save some money with some super fancy options, which are maybe just for visuals or seating. For example, you have lots of comfort, even more if you don't pick the animal skin equipment. But then if it's about the assistance systems and some stuff that really adds to your safety, I think you shouldn't save money on that, because when there's more safety, at the end of the day, it will pay off for you, or maybe also for someone else. So here again, a very relaxed drive. And if you ask me, X4 or X3, yes, the X4 was pretty great to drive also on the racetrack, although you feel it's still pushing to the outside with that weight. But the X3 definitely makes more sense, because you have more comfort and also with a more practical rear hatch there. And if you ask me, X1 or X3, well, considering the X1 is really a less expensive vehicle, it somehow makes more sense as well. You have the same room on the interior. The front hood is longer here just with the X3. If you're really keen on driving a 6-cylinder, then it's the X3 for you. And if the little bit even more higher seating position is important for you, then it's also the X3. Because you just sit a little bit higher, have more king-size position here. Already feels like a very grown-up SUV, which it is. But then again, the X1, if you just put the seat maybe a little bit higher, it feels more agile, is more fun to drive, is less expensive, and you have the same room on the interior. So yes, at some point you think, with some features, this is maybe a segment here still above. But if you look at the hard facts, it will still always be the X1. However, there will still be a lot of user cases where the X3 still makes sense. And sometimes if you get some concise offers from your dealers, especially in Germany, I'm not sure how it's on other markets, sometimes we pay less money for the bigger cars, because there are then some special deals also with economies of scales. They want to, let's say, sell more Audi A4 or something, and then suddenly you end up getting an Audi A4 for a lower price than Audi A1. So this has also to do with some big leasing offers and so on. So you also have to take that in mind into consideration. But overall, the global market clearly is deciding on the X1 at the moment, because the X1 is now the most sold SUV at BMW, and I think there were even now quarters or months where the X1 were the most sold BMW overall. So the X1 is the success car at the moment at BMW. It's no wonder, because it's actually also the best deal they're offering there. However, some more confidence, some more upper riding position, and the 6-cylinder possibility, and the calmness of the ride, the sound insulation is better than here in the X3 than in the X1. Those factors still speak for an X3 if you're willing to pay some of the extra price. And again, as I started this driving part, the best thing is really that this is now one of the most silent and calm mid-size SUV overall on the market, and it's pretty fancy. And now to our conclusion for today with the BMW X3. Well, on the exterior, it's already almost an X5 as for the exterior dimensions. Visually, of course, it's still shorter. And if you think about the X1 and the X4, X3 and the X4 are basically the same cars, just with a sportier setup for the X4 and of course this coupe style line. This one here makes more sense, and it has more room on the inside, especially in the very rear, and is also softer in the ride. The X1 is a little bit more agile, has a better package, so a lot of room on the inside without being so tall on the exterior as this one here already. However, the X3 is more confident in the ride, has a little bit more comfort, and also the higher seating position. And you also have the 6-cylinder capacity if you want so. Overall, it's one of, for sure, the best mid-size SUVs on the market, especially because they have increased the noise insulation here in this very new generation. What do you think? We'll take a detailed look on the exterior, interior,
and the driving experience with the Q5. Already at the front we can see the design scheme of the Q5, and that is in general elegant but very conservative. Maybe it's not the right decision for people who want to, drive a very screaming out car, but maybe more people like a rather conservative layout. What is your take on this? The only thing that's really screaming out is the big single frame grille here framed around. Then we got the headlights pretty much horizontally drawn. Standard, they do not come with LED. Then you can get optional LED, or then here the highest trim, the matrix LED, that also have the high beam function. And you see those accentuations on the hood to give the strength, a little accentuation right here for the front hood. It is also really making its debut here totally to the front. So I like it that when we don't have this split here in the front, it makes a more elegant design. 4.66 m or 15'3" is the total length. It is now built in Mexico, in the federal state of Puebla. And people have been arguing about that quite a lot. And my experience from the first and now the second ride is you cannot really see in the quality that it's from Mexico, because the same quality standards apply. However, you can argue, why are they doing it? For cost savings, because the wages are way lower, but the customer doesn't profit from that. Rims, they go from 17 to 21 inch. This one here in the middle with 19 inch, and also very conservative layout, but you can also get some more spicy rims for sure. In the side profile, you see there's one design line going from the hood, and I think it's a beautiful clean design from the hood all the way above the door handles to the very rear. The windows are pretty upright, but that will offer us a good round view in the interior and also some more space. So overall, you see what I'm telling you in the front also, a rather conservative layout, but also a little bit of form follows function. And again, usually on the car market, if you're doing too much joyful stuff, also customer will not really cheer for it. So this might be going well, and it has been a bestseller so far. What's your take? In prices, they start, taking Germany as a reference, 40,000. Then with a 2-liter TDI, as we have here today, for example, with all-wheel drive, 50,000. And then if you add all the extras, and you can add so many extras here, then it gets really expensive. This very test vehicle, 70,000 euros. I think that's too expensive for a compact SUV. Then from the design layout, you see here again horizontal stress. Again, very clean design, and my personal favorite are those tail lights. They have this 3D layout, or you can really feel it, and then those, let's maybe say, tiger claws on the inside. And this is probably the most spectacular element of the exterior design. So what do we have? Engines. This is a 2-liter TDI, available as 150, 163, or here 190 horsepower, then already combined with the all-wheel drive. Then as a 3-liter TDI with 218 horsepower or 286 horsepower, and petrol engines, 2-liter TFSI 252 horsepower, we've driven that one in Mexico, and a 3-liter TFSI with 354 horsepower if you have the biggest diesel, the 3-liter TDI with 286 horsepower, but just this horsepower version, and the SQ5, the biggest petrol one. Then you will have a converter automatic gearbox. Everything else then is with the dual clutch transmission, as this one here today. let's get inside with this beautiful key. I think, you know, so it's pretty slim and has a elegant design, or even the knobs, they have high class knob sound, I would say. So I really liked it. The door handles, they flip to the upside, and this one here is that you can theoretically still manual open the car. So if you maybe have lost the battery power, something like that, then you could put the key here in manual, just to, you know, to have this as a backup plan. Then let's take a look. What they've chosen here is a matte wood. It's an ash tree, or Esche in Germany, and that feels very well. I really like that they do that. High class build quality also here, and with the buttons, for example, here to open or close the door. But then again, this is a premium SUV, and on the top part of the door we have just hard plastics. Too much cost saving here. I think the customer should receive, for example, a nice textile cover or a leatherette cover, or at least soft plastic materials. It's just maybe, well, no, it's actually pretty hard. Or something like this, for example, here with the microfiber on the inside. That is definitely well done. And also the buttons here for the windows that click very well. Space here on the inside of the doors, I think you can live by that. You can also open the hatch with this button here. And then let's take a further look on the inside, where we have another ash tree matte wood style right there. The steering wheel continues the design from the front grille with a single frame, Audi single frame. I like when interior deals repeat something from the exterior. Seats, two basic forms, normal seat and an S Sport seats. The S Sport seats you have seen in the review from Mexico. I cannot recommend them, rather go for the non-sport seats, as they offer you more space and are more comfortable. In Germany it starts with a fabric cover, I would go for that, or alternatively you can have microfiber on the inside but then animal skin on the outside. Audi sadly does it that way. This one here, they usually equip all their test vehicles with full animal skin equipment, which get pretty hot in summer and cold in winter. Seating position here is actually quite good. Headroom, a lot of room still left here, so that's very well done. Also, there's no panoramic roof here inside. However, you can also go for the panoramic roof and still you will be quite okay when you're tall. Then the steering wheel can be adjusted in all four ways. That again, great from the build quality. Again, it's a pretty easy system also. You can argue if it should be electrically, but I'm also fine with this manual system. You have an upright seating position in this SUV, a good view to all of the sides. That is also pretty good, and there again the conservative layout on the exterior has advantages than on the interior. The seats have an electric lumbar support. Other than that, they have the manual control here. You can also get electric seats if you want it. Here you can just pump it up like this or pump it down. And to open the front hood, it's this latch here in the top part. And it was also pretty nice for the head-up display. You can easily control it with this knob right there. You can activate or deactivate it, the projection, and then you can also change the height of the projection like this. So, and here we are, the head-up display. Speed information is over right there, and if you then want to change the height, you can see now it's out of the picture. Depending on you know, your personal height, you can really change it around, and there will also be, for example, GPS information or also information on the current allowed speed. The cockpit or instrument display starts with an analog one, then optional you can go for the virtual cockpit as we see it right now here. So fully digital, and you can also switch around the views a little bit. For example, go to a GPS view in the middle part, or have your sound or telephone information right there. You have some trance music. Also see the consumption, and then you can switch the view here. Also, if you're then in the GPS view, you can have a full GPS over the whole screen. So you're pretty flexible in this respect, like this here. Also with a satellite view, if you want to have it. Looks very spectacular for sure. Cockpit overview. What is nicely done that they have also the design lines from the exterior also here included in the interior, like here for example with the horizontal layout. Here the plastics is just a little bit softened up, so something in between.
8.3 inch is the top screen you can have. You can also have smaller ones. Then you can see also, for example, with an Apple CarPlay integration. What is good is then when you have an internet connection and you click on phone, that you can also use it, with voice commands. That is, the advantage. Then the vents are placed right there, and my favorite part is always the climate unit under the strip with the matte wood interior. And I really like the climate unit with blue and red symbol lights, and then you can have this nice Audi clicking sound, my favorite clicking sound in the automotive industry, and also with those capacitive buttons right there that change something, and also the whole layout. So my favorite climate unit overall. The steering wheel is actually pretty huge, so there are a lot of smaller steering wheels, but it has also great elegance here with this chrome detail right there. And for such a vehicle, it's also not too bad if it's a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to be the most, the smallest, most dynamic steering wheel overall. And this column here is a little bit thicker, that you can have this projector for the head-up display right there we've just shown you. So a close look at the infotainment system. No touch whatsoever. It looks like, you really want to touch this button then. But no, nothing happening there. You have to control it with the central MMI stick in the lower part. And here you can switch back to the car infotainment system then again, and also check out how the GPS looks right there, for example. You can go to the map directly like this, and with a satellite view here, it of course looks really amazing. And the GPS in general is also doing a good job. You can also connect your phone via Bluetooth. That one would also be possible. And those vehicle views here, when you want to set different driving modes, for example, also well done from the visualization part. And here you can pick the different riding modes, and you can see then here how the car is lifted up by this optional air suspension. We'll talk more about that when we drive the car. Here we can pick the driving modes here with the driving select buttons. Then there's some space here in the front, for example, for basement garage beeper, start stop button. And what I really like here, we usually also see that in Bentley cars with metal knurling around the 12-volt power supply covers. Love that. Then you have this touchpad here optionally. You can draw, for example, like A, B, whatever, when you are in a GPS mode and want to have an address, or you can also have some hotkeys right here from 1 to 8. Then there's the central knob you can control everything with, and the automatic gearbox, dual clutch transmission. It's a pretty good lever. You can very fastly switch around from rear to driving mode and so on. Next to that is some space for the key, or maybe you can also sometimes put a smartphone in here, for example, volume knob. Then the bottles actually fit quite well into adaptive holders, so different sizes fit quite well. The armrest can be put a little bit higher, and then you can also rest your arm on it while driving, pretty fixedly attached. Then you can put your smartphone here if you want to use an inductive charging, and if your smartphone is suitable for that. Here again the adaptive bottle holders, but you can also slide that forward, that you can rest your phone right here, that you can still see or reach for it. And then have some more space right there with 2 USB plugs. So while the normal glove box is not too spacious, there's another hole right here next to the steering column, and what's going on there? It's like you can... How long is that? Really interesting, and just have an idea, maybe even an umbrella fitting in there. So give me your ideas of what you would fit right there in this one. A Colt maybe? Pull it out. So the rear compartment, let's open the door right there. And you see I've got the seat as I would be driving. You can already see that there's not too much space left. I will soon show you that. First of all, you can also fold the seats here. You have to use this lever, and then you can fold down the seats from here. I will soon show you that it will also be possible to flip them from the trunk. Then let's get inside. Let's see. And this is not a good result for a compact SUV. So you see the seats are pretty thick. Some space in front of my legs is still left, but we've seen way better packages. Then headroom, that is actually plentiful, that's no problem. And by this lever here, you can also adjust a little bit the angle of the backrest. I like that. So you can have it more on the back and also more upright. Also, you can slide the bench, for example, a little bit forward, depending if you want to have more luggage space. Well, maybe I could slide with my seat a little bit more forward. So to say that, that would give us, some more centimeters in the front than with the front seats. But here in general, you are very flexible with the rear bench. You have this 2/3, 1/3 split, also then to adjust the position. So that is well done. And optional, you can also have this 3-zone AC. So you also have an option for the rear passengers. So let's check the hatch, electric one here. Ta-da! This is very nicely done here. Feels also very good. Probably also prone to scratches, but this is high-class build quality. Then, you see it here, it's not that you can just press it and then it falls down. That would be the best solution. Here you just have to do it like this, but it is here with some rails on the side, still a clean solution. Then you also get, for example, here this flatly folded tire is a pretty interesting solution. It's a real full tire basically, but it's just folded, and good idea. And the sound systems part in the middle part. Then you can get different solutions here for the rear. For example, here you can adjust it, for example, here with the net and split it. You can put this one over there. Then you have this system here available, which you can also put out, for example, or then you have to use those ones here to slide it. So you can split it half, for example. So you have a lot of solutions here how to split this trunk, and you can see that the basic shape is also rather versatile. Then you could also flip the seats like this from here, also nicely done. On this side here you can also move the car down if you have the air suspension for an easier loading. Also you can flip the other bench. Well, here we go. Okay, there we go now. So sometimes it needs a little help. And then let's move it really down. So like this. And then you're actually quite flexible. So very well usable overall, the luggage compartment, which is from the usual setup above 500 liters. Oh, that was a little fail now. You see that can happen when you flip it out. So from a basic one, it's just right above 500 liters, and then it goes up, as we have seen it right here now, just above 1,500 liters. And children's safety, do they apply too much torque? Yeah, they do. Audi engineers, a little bit less torque behind that hatch, that would be safer. So guys, let's go with our drive for today. And earlier 2-liter TDI is here on right now. We'll start with a short ride on the Autobahn to show you the acceleration. And well, we can also go to the Audi Drive Select and have the dynamic mode, which will turn up the gears a little bit higher, and therefore also helps us in the acceleration. So gears are turned up higher and also shifted earlier down again. So I would say from 50 to 100, something like that. Let's go. Plop. That's it. So that was 50 to 100, and you see this is a really reasonable acceleration. It's of course not too powerful, but this engine here gives you way enough power. You know, this is also available with lower horsepower variants. But this one here, you know, you can also get the 3-liter TDI, so that would also be possible. But again, I mean, it's a very suitable engine for this car if you are still buying a diesel. If you think, you know, still want to have a diesel here,
This one here makes actually a very good job because it is very silent. They're pretty well insulated. You've seen the performance is also good. I can also go back, for example, to the comfort mode that I have a more comfortable ride. Here with the air suspension, that was also pretty funny, showing me in the display. When I go to the dynamic mode, also the car goes down just a little bit from the air suspension, that I have, you know, a little bit more control over the car. If I go to the auto mode, I'm in the neutral position. If I would go to the lift or lift off-road mode, then I could actually, oh, let's see. Well, turning circle is pretty good. Nice. That's well done. So if you go to this lift or off-road mode, you can have a little bit more ground clearance. That is also helping. So here in the corner, the car is pretty stable, although we have the air suspension, so there's no wobbling or what you say. Still, you know, pretty dynamic car. This is the normal mode, and then let's switch back to the dynamic mode again. Oh, more bottles here with some water making some noises. And yeah, here in the dynamic mode you get a little bit more feedback from the road. Suspension is also stiffer, so there's not that with some other vehicles, if you pick an air suspension, that you have to live with that all the time. So if you are in situations where you think, I need more feedback from the road or so, you can actually get it here too with the driving modes. But in general, you rather leave it in auto or comfort mode, really to get this kind of comfort, because I mean, this is what the air suspension is all about, a lot of comfort. So I would also rather go with that one. So let's go back to the auto mode. And the funny thing about this diesel here is, as it's so well insulated, and also the acceleration comes pretty good, you really have to know you're driving a diesel. So the first time I got this vehicle, and I didn't really quite remember, wait a minute, was it with a diesel now, with a petrol engine? I went outside when the engine was running and just listened to, okay, it's a diesel, you know, because there's a different sound, you know, when just running in neutral, because it's really hard to recognize from the driving experience if it is a diesel. So yes, this is a very refined one. Also the consumption is pretty okay. Long term we have something between 6 and 7 liters on 100 kilometers. Here, now in a heavier traffic situation, we can also talk about the assistance systems. You see the blind spot monitor is flashing here 3 yellow LEDs when the car is next to us, and when we activate the turning indicator, it's also flashing really to give even increased warning. Then let's activate the adaptive cruise control. I also see it in the head-up display that it's now activated. So I'm doing nothing with brakes or throttle at the moment. And then the distance is kept in the car to the car in front of me. And I mean, maybe we're also lucky that we come to a standstill here in the traffic, which would normally be not being lucky, but then you could also see that the traffic assist system is working. So if the car is not standing still for a long time, it automatically also continues driving again. Just if it took some seconds, then you, for example, pull the ACC lever just once, and then the car keeps rolling again. And this is pretty helpful because you can really rather relax when being in traffic then. The steering wheel is actually quite large, but you know, it's not hindering you while driving. You have to think also that with your hands and your arms, you see, is also in a pretty neutral position, at least for me now. So I found that pretty okay. Now we may be coming to a standstill. Yes, we are in super traffic. We can test the assistance systems. I didn't expect that we once were feeling lucky when being stuck in traffic. So let's see. Oh, there's a nice doggy in front of us also. So now coming. Hello, Mr. Doggy. Now almost standstill at least. Well, 4 kilometers. You see now the car is accelerating again. That's really helpful in traffic situations. Also, the sound insulation is so good here in that vehicle that you hardly hear something from the outside. That is also very helpful. So, and the sound system, we have the optional Bang & Olufsen mounted here, and that is also giving us good sound. Pretty good 3D surround sound. I like that. So if you're liking music, that one will also be something for you. Again, with the ACC in the highest build trim of that one, you also have, for example, traffic sign recognition. I see that in the head-up display also now, and then the adaptive cruise control is adjusting. So at the moment, there was a sign with 100 maximum allowed. So the car is also now accelerating up to a speed of 100 kilometers an hour until another sign is being realized. Now it's going 100. There can be sometimes some mistakes with it. For example, you know, if there's maybe another lane approaching the motorway, which we are not on, you get a 60 sign, then maybe the camera catches that one and then breaks you down. So that can actually happen. So that would be the downside of it. The positive side about it is that you don't have so much risk to get into speed cameras. So you're pretty aware of it's always keeping the speed limit with the car. So I mean, it's a pretty useful system in general. And also this assistant, this predictive assistant, is also helping you to save some fuel, because sometimes when you, for example, going uphill and then we have map information, the car knows that you're going downhill after that. Then it already reduces the speed just a little bit to save some fuel. So that is also basically working. So let's get off that traffic motorway, showing you acceleration motorway, also about the assistant systems. Here again, a pretty good steering characteristics, a dynamic ride. It feels good to ride it. It's also fun to ride it because you can switch around the suspension, but even the standard suspension setting with the air suspension is still actually quite sporty, so you can't complain about that. At the same time, the optional air suspension, 2,000 euros extra, gives you really good riding comfort. And so if you combine this compromise between riding comfort and sportiness, the Q5 is really on top of the game in this segment. I'm not saying it is the very, very best. That's always hard to argue, you know, because everyone has different personal preferences there. But surely, I mean, it's really flawless suspension-wise. So you can only, you know, applaud them on doing that. And also steering wheel-wise, or how the steering characteristic is, both easy to control. You know, don't have to roll the steering wheel around too much, but at the same time it gives you enough feedback and also a sporty ride if you want to have such one. Hey, I think here there was an Opel driving event, I think 4 years ago. Yeah, that was interesting, right? So somewhere where we passed by, say, yeah, we've been there before with some other manufacturer. Pretty fun. It was, I think it was 2013. Yeah, it sure was one of our first videos. And yeah, exactly. We had a blue Opel Cascada there too. So memories come up there. Really funny. Don't search for our very first videos. Don't do it. No, you will not watch them, please, because our today's videos are way better. Damn it, now some people start to show us. But it was, come on, watch this one to the end first, yeah, okay? Is that a deal? Then you can laugh about our very first videos, okay? Yeah, Michelle's also giving thumbs up. So, steadily approaching countryside now, and again, how silent it is here in the vehicle. Also, again, I wouldn't really realize if it's a diesel. So, you know, meanwhile, I got it that I'm not the biggest friend of diesel, but this one here, a really refined one, even if it's the famous 2-liter TDI from the Volkswagen, you know, Audi VW Corporation. So it's basically the cheating engine. But you know, as long as they have improved it now, I mean, at least, even though diesels will surely not win prizes for ecological savings anymore. I mean, also the reasonable consumption here, so for a diesel it's really very well done, and still a lot of people will go for this one, and I mean, I can very well understand it because it's a very well done diesel, that's for sure. So you can also have some fun here, just in acceleration again, fun and calmness at the same time. So in every respect, I think they've really created a very good driving feeling where a lot of people can be happy with. So anything we didn't cover yet? I think, well, maybe the overview here is very good to the front. The sides, the windows are pretty upright. They give you a good overview also to the rear, frameless rear mirror. So the overview is also very good. I mean, we talked about that well, let's take this road here, sorry guys, because it looks interesting maybe for our some more beautiful shots or something like that. That could be nice, let's see. So overall, I would really say, driving wise, very well done. And the rather conservative layout on the exterior definitely helps to keep a good view, good overview in the interior. I would say that's it so far for the driving part. And now the conclusion for today, Audi Q5. So this here in the second ride, already with the first ride, was pretty impressive. Exterior, really a conservative layout, but with a lot of elegance, just, subtle design lines we can see. And overall, I think it is suitable for the overall market, because as I said earlier, usually, a lot of comments are, make something more spicy, but then at the real sales, if cars are rather conservative in the design, they often sell more, especially for fleet customers, for example. Interior then, very well processed, as we know from Audi, with some elements I mentioned, for example, the inside of the doors in the front, they should really be covered, not only with some hard plastics, everything else great with the knob sound and the matte wood. It was also pretty well done. Again, also rather conservative layout. So overall, I mean, if you want a very joyful car as a compact SUV in the premium segment, that's not your car. If you want everything cleanly laid out with the elegance, then it's probably rather your choice. Driving wise, it's definitely among the top in its segment, especially here with the air suspension. You can adjust it how hard you really want to have it while riding. You have those driving modes and you have great comfort, but still a sporty ride, also with an agile riding feeling. So a lot of things they are doing very well here. If you compare it, for example, to a Mercedes GLC, Mercedes is clearly leading it and offering more alternatives to animal skin, for example, something Audi is really lacking majorly. Engine-wise, the diesel, 4 diesel, is really a very good performance, but more and more feedback is also coming that you want to see more petrol, CNG or electric engines. And let's, freely discuss it. So far, if you run 40, 50,000 kilometers a year, diesel is still the way to go, but more alternatives are of course evolving. Overall, I think they really have a big stance here in the compact SUV market that is not changing with the owner generation, that has been refined in all of the different steps, the different elements they have here. Thank you so much. Let's hear your feedback. What do you think about the Audi Q5? A detailed look on the exterior, different trim levels on the outside and also different trim levels on the inside. We'll present you everything of that and also the driving experience today with the optional air suspension. And we also take a look at the semi-autonomous driving features. That will be very interesting, I can promise you. Of course, with full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Very strong front in all trim levels, that's for sure. And I mean, design-wise, I want to hear your opinion, of course, but I think already right now it's one of the most beautiful SUVs, especially in this compact SUV segment. You also have the Thor's Hammer LED lights, also the turning indicators here. When you open the car, you see how the signature is pretty interesting, and comes with LED lights here also in the top trim level. This one is the Inscription, and therefore we also have chrome vertical fins right there. It will look different in other trim levels. I will soon show you, for example, the R design. And you know, to save money, I always advise you to go for low or mid trim levels that you don't pay too much money. Later on I will tell you also more about the prices. 4.68 meters or 15'3" is the total length of the all-new XC60. Not so much different to the predecessor, 4 centimeters longer this one, but the wheelbase has been lengthened to create more space in the interior. We will see later on if that really works. Really excited. Still, this vehicle here is 27 centimeters shorter than the XC90, the bigger brother. And some might want to have a Volvo SUV, a modern Volvo SUV. This one, by the way, the keyless entry function. See the side mirrors flip out. And now you have an easier entry right again in the new generation, so that might be relevant. So in this review I will also talk about differences XC60 and XC90. Rims, you get 18 or 19 as we are here in the Inscription or in the R-Line trim, but also 21 inch in the R design, for example, optional possible. I will soon show you that, but I think I would be really fine with this size. 19 inch looks great to the car. By the way, the color here is denim blue. They got really interesting colors, and I like the contrast with the chrome around the windows. Overall, if you look at the design from the side profile, it hasn't changed that much. It's rather a conservative one, but a very clean and beautiful one. You see here that the main design line raises up here to form a little stronger shoulders. The interior is way different from the predecessor. You will soon see that. However, here in the rear, you see a lot of resemblance to the outgoing model, just that this horizontal taillight strip has been added right there. Again, it's rather a timeless design, also with a rather round structure, whereas the front was a little bit more angular. I think overall, it is really a very good design, seamless design. What's your take? Which is your favorite compact SUV design-wise at the moment? This is the key, and we got very solid door handles, door closing sound, Inscription trim level. There's a xenon package available. I will talk about more that soon, but I can tell there's leatherette on the inside of the doors and it feels really great. They got really good build quality here as well. Automatic door window handles, and also galvanized handles right there. Bowers & Wilkins sound system. Then this interior, I love the styling from the bright interior. Wow! However, as it is the highest trim of the Inscription, the seat is all animal skin, at least the inside parts. But there's a good alternative. It's called City Weave. You can get it, for example, in the Momentum trim level, and then you have a fabric mix with some Scandinavian checkered blue design, and then bright leatherette on the outside. You can take a look at it as a photo on our website too, and just look it up in the configurator. You save money, you have a more sustainable solution, and I think it looks even better. And you also have good climate comfort when fabric is on the inside, just for seating longer terms. You sweat less, and it's also not that cold in winter as with this one here. Also great design from the steering wheel in this contrast here. I just love this interior from the style. And as I said, I'm glad that there are also sustainable options you can go for, because here with the Inscription trim level, I will tell you the very prices in the end, but with the top trim and all of the options here, the car really gets too expensive. So you have to be aware that you don't exceed the options. Seating, first of all, the steering wheel can be adjusted, and if you compare it to models before, this one is a very smooth mechanism now. I do feel this car has better build quality also than the XC90. Here with the panoramic roof, the headroom is rather shallow. I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", so that could be a little bit better. Yeah, you have to think about if you're a little bit taller than me, then probably you should leave out the panoramic roof. Other than that, you got this high seating position, not as high as in the XC90 it feels, but in general, I mean, when you're sitting here in the front and use the front, there's no real reason to go for the XC90 other than that you have even more trunk in the rear. In the front, you can easily go with an XC60 and even have the better car. As I said, the build quality is better than in the XC90. You feel it in some little details. And one interesting detail, look at how low this door sill is. And when I close it and then open it again, look how the whole area right in here is covered. That means that this area will not get dirty. It's a very interesting idea, because this area, especially when you are at a car wash and stuff, or when there's mud coming from the lower part, here you see also the rubber lip. So this will rather stay clean with this vehicle. Pretty interesting feature. But then of course, when you have, for example, a very high pavement next to you, look out that you don't scratch the ground. Cockpit overview. This is definitely a car where you say, wow, Scandinavian design, really pretty, especially with this matte wood. It doesn't leave any fingerprints, feels very well, it looks superb and has this clean Scandinavian nature design. Also, I really adore this bright styling right there, and important that the dashboard remains black, because otherwise a bright dashboard would really reflect in the windshield. This one here is also equipped with the so-called Xenium package, and that one adds leatherette on the top of the dashboard, for example, and also at some parts of the inside of the doors. And the interesting thing here again is no one could really tell, so it's a really high-class leatherette. They could, for example, also use for the seats a little bit more, but as I told you, there is a possibility. I think, especially due to this span here, even more beautiful than the XC90, and surely even more sensual than the predecessor version. This one here, the 9-inch screen, comes then with also with higher trim levels, so more details to that very soon. The only button is below that for the volume in this crystal design, here with the 8-speed automatic gearbox 2, and also the lower parts right there. They are again covered in matte natural wood, open cell. This is a very interesting feature, and you can slide those ones open. Then you have the cup holders below that. They are also a little bit adaptive. 12-volt power supply. Then you got the start engine stop. You turn it right to start, the drive mode button, all again in this crystal design. And what you also feel is that they have improved the build quality also if you compare it to the XC90. See here, the middle armrest is also very properly attached, for example. And below this one here, we got some space and also 2 USB slots. Look at that steering wheel. What an awesome design with a color contrast. I just love it, and it fits the same with the rest of the interior. However, I would also love if they offer the option to put it with the leatherette cover. Then you got the, for example, the adaptive cruise control, or then also the pilot assist control functions right there on the steering wheel. And the instruments, you see, they're all dark at the moment. They are optionally fully digital. Either you get 8-inch or then optional this one here, 12.3-inch. And then you can also start the engine. You can see all of them with the modern digital display, which has the advantage that you can also, for example, have GPS information in there. And there's now also a head-up display with a clear visual displayment, and also GPS information can be seen there. Definitely a nice option. So this infotainment system, like in the XC90, has one button as a home screen. And then everything is sorted here. For example, for the sound system, you can pick different settings here. Phone you can either add via Bluetooth, or also if you scroll here, you can use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Then the GPS looks like this. You can also put it a little bit bigger right there. And see also it's quite responsive. You also can zoom in and out. That's obviously the high zoom. And you see it takes some time to load. That could be a little bit faster. You have to get, in Dresden today, so we have to get used to the infotainment system a little bit. Settings, for example, changing the language is right there. If you scroll from there, you can also put it to the left. Here, for example, if you want to use the camera, that is also very important. Sometimes, when you want to go in the front and want to use the camera, then you just do like this and put the camera there. And you see it's really crystal clear, good resolution. This is the rear view camera now, but you can also put it to this surround view. This is the fake drone view from above, made out by 4 cameras. And then you can also click to see the in-depth look on each single camera. So very well done, that one. Of course, this screen is very prone to fingerprints, but there's a good solution because it comes here directly with the microfiber tissue, and there's a symbol on there, 2 seconds. What does that mean? Very interesting, because when you then hold this one here for 2 or 3 seconds, it goes in a cleaning mode, that no option is activated, and then you can take your time and clean it without activating anything and have a clear screen. So, you should rather do that after eating some French fries, probably. A very nice detail is the frameless mirror, very elegant, and you can see very well. Then we have an optional panoramic roof. You can remove that shade like this, and it's also possible to open it just a notch here. Wow, that's really big. Wow. And then you can also open it fully, and this makes it, well, closest to an SUV convertible, because there's actually a quite big gap here and leaves a lot of light in the interior by the costs of having a little bit less headroom. So what about the rear compartment? As I said, the car is a little bit longer now, has longer wheelbase. That should leave more room on the inside than the predecessor version. The package on the XC60, however, was never the best one in segment. So I'm really excited how it looks like right now. And yeah, that really has improved. I got the seat as I would be driving, and you can see that still leaves me enough knee room. So even here in the rear, I would not need an XC90 really. Headroom wise, well, that's close. But again, this is with a panoramic roof. If you want more headroom for rear passengers, then you should leave out the panoramic roof. However, it also leaves light in the interior, so it's also nice to have. Seating position, very comfortable and upright here too. So the XC90 would be important for you if you want to have those additional seats, those 6th and 7th seats. Also here, armrest with another storage space and cup holders in the front. Optional, you can also get the climate control for the rear seats. That is possible then. And there's even a real plug in the rear and a 12-volt power supply. So also those details here, they really paid attention to details. I love that. And you can already see from here, this is also where a ski hatch would go through. So you cannot open it from here, you have to open it from the other side, but you can also already see that it's possible. And with the seats, you can also flip them, and you see, and automatically the head restraints go down, and you have a nice cloth on the rear part, top tether available, and Isofix anchors on the outside of the seats. You can already see that we have a split here. This is basically 1/3. The rest we can take a look from the trunk. So what about the trunk? Electric hatch we have right here. Also again, bright interior. I love that style. You see the cover here moves up automatically directly with the hatch. Below here, but very nice aluminum covers. Then we have a spare tire right there. A 12-volt power supply on the left side. This one would be the ski hatch I showed you earlier. And when you put the armrest down, you have this hatch, the small hatch opened. Then also interesting, let's see, you have an old dog, for example. wants to get in the trunk, or maybe just for loading heavy things, then you can, if you have the optional air suspension, put this car a little bit lower, and it does make some difference indeed. So it's not the biggest difference, but I think you saw that. It's quite useful. And then next to that, the buttons for flipping the seats. And the only thing is there's no sensor for people sitting in front of there. And that means when people sit there, and that happened on the motor show, they get hit. So they should add sensors that people, when they sit there, that they are also not attacked by the seats. But then again, all flat, you can very well use this vehicle. Again, I see the advantage for the XC90, really with the 6th and 7th seat. Other than that, the XC60 will be totally enough for you. And child safety test. Well done. Nice sensitivity, but still they manage that the hatch closes all the time in a good way. So well done. Oh, and the car moves up again. And let's take a comparing look at the R-Design trim level. Sporty look with aggressive spoilers in the lower part, the front grille in glossy black with horizontal elements, then with those pins here to have a more aggressive look overall. Which is your favorite? At the moment you start with 18-inch rims. I guess later on with the entry model there will also be lower rim trims. Then 19 usually with the R-Design, but those ones here are the 21-inch optional big wheels. They are really huge, and I'm not sure about the riding comfort. I would rather go with the 19-inch, for example. They still look great and give you a little bit more comfort. Then also here those aluminum caps. I think not the best decision to go with a white color combination, but if you pick a blue exterior, that will make a great match for sure. What do you think about the side profile of the R-Design if you compare it to the other trims? And also a sporty look in the rear, especially with this lower bumper right there. And then again, fake exhaust tips all the way. And another seat alternative would be the R-Design trim level. Here you got microfiber on the inside and supposed to be animal skin on the outside. Well, I mean, at least you go also for a microfiber decision. Also good for the climate comfort and sportier, because you don't slide around in the seat so much, and the seat also has a little bit more shoulder support. So this would be an alternative if you go with a very high trim level. And also different R-Design steering wheel here, contrast stitches on the inside, and the steering wheel form itself is also a little bit different. Also the R-Design rather not features wood, but here in aluminum style, and an interesting Easter egg here, a silhouette of a Sweden flag. So what's under the hood? Nice that it continues all the way to the front, good for design, not so good for crash and insurance cost, of course. Then hydraulic struts, as we used to from Volvo. This one here is the D4 diesel engine. I mean, all engines, petrol and diesel, are 2-liter displacement and 4-cylinder. This one here 190 horsepower, the smaller diesel. And then there's also a 235 variant available, and petrol engines at the moment there is a 250 horsepower and also 320, and this 320 horsepower variant can also be combined with hybrids. This is then the T8, so 320 plus about 80 horsepower from the electric engine. It's a plug-in hybrid, same as with the XC90. That one is, is the future engine, that one. It's most up to date. This acceleration here about 8.4 seconds, by the way, to 100 kilometers. Consumption wise, very interesting. The Volvo engines do consume a lot of fuel. 8.5 liter on 100 kilometers is our test result with this engine for today. And the petrol engines are way above 10 liters. Let's start. Starting an engine right there. Easy to put in D mode, and we'll start in the city, and then we'll head over to the countryside. And the interesting thing, mute the GPS. Here in Dresden today, very pretty old buildings, has all been rebuilt after World War II. And what you feel, especially in a narrow city, steering is very light. This car has an advantage if you compare it to the XC90 or also other very big full-size SUVs. As a compact SUV, it's still very well maneuverable. In the city you don't feel, oh, I have such a big car, I feel a little bit annoyed now, I have to get along somehow a little bit better. This is the strength of compact SUVs, especially if you think about European city. You can of course go one segment below, but definitely you have an advantage if you, for example, do not need a 6th or 7th seat. This is really calm here, especially when we're standing still now, so they have worked on the sound installation. Also, if you compare it to the predecessor model, of course, the sound installation has been good already before. The 8-speed automatic gearbox is shifting really smoothly. Traffic announcement. I hate those traffic announcements, but I mean, sometimes they can be very useful, but they just, pop up and then they surprise you at times. You can also follow the GPS. For example, when I see, going over the Elbe now, very soon, and you can also see it in the middle display. If it appears to you, by the way, that the middle part is flickering a little bit and the other one not, it's not really flickering in real life when you look at it with your own eyes, it's just on the display. So that's a mismatch of the frame rate of the camera and of the display, because the camera record faster basically in the display show, but for your eyes it won't really make a difference. And the third GPS view is then exactly in the head-up display in front of my eyes, so it's pretty helpful to have different opportunities to take a look at those. Oh, it's blocked right here, this road. Actually wanted to go here, but the bridge is closed. Didn't pay attention to that. But here again, the steering wheel is so light. It's actually fun. I mean, at some point you say maybe, is it good to have very light steering wheel? I'm not exactly sure. Does it feel unnatural? Yes, in a way it does feel unnatural. Still wants to, no, got the other bridge now. But then again, especially when cruising around in the city, it's so easy to do that. Start-stop function. You hear the engine is silent now, but I'm not the biggest fan of start-stop function, because on the long-term run they are really not good for the engine. We experienced that in the Total laboratory in France. They explained that when they tested the engine on a long-term run. It's more a thing to get the fleet consumption down for the manufacturer. It's not really helping you. So when you're going some slalom here at about 50, again the steering wheel is basically dead. It feels arcade, game style alike. So again, for the city driving, this is helpful, because and for parking in and out, that really helps you. You don't need to have any power in your hands. If you rather think about a sportier approach, then it wouldn't really match that. Then again, Volvo is not the brand that says we are in this sporty region, so I think that's still okay. If it is a BMW, for example, I would expect something different then, for example. We will soon also test the different driving modes we have available. The overview here to the sides. Well, the windows are rather upright, and this bright interior also helps to get the overview, because everything looks so bright and clean. And although it has some interesting design features on the exterior, you have a good roundabout overview from the inside. And then you also have, if you really need it, the optional camera systems available, so you could use those ones too. Yeah, what you feel also with this air suspension in normal mode, the car is pretty heavy in corners, and the steering wheel doesn't give you any feedback from the road. So driving fast, at least in the normal driving mode, is really not the big specification of this very vehicle. I think you can go here. This is interesting because I usually don't horn people, but maybe you would have waited another 3 hours. This is interesting here, you can drive at the red light when there's this green arrow and of course no one else is coming. Then it's okay. And I would say we also, when the green light comes now, we test the acceleration just a little bit. Also stay in normal mode, and when we go outside we also go to the other different driving modes. But what I feel already right now, I mean, standard suspension would be just a normal one. This one here with the adaptive air suspension, that's the reason we could also lower the trunk in the rear. And the interesting thing is that with the sedan, with the S60 or with the S90 or V90, you only had the rear air suspension, not in the front. With the XC90 and then also here with the XC60 SUV style, you have it for both axles. And I guess you do feel that, the S and V90 suspension is also good already, but this one here gives something more in smoothness. You especially feel it on the front axle. So I think we should be able to go now, yeah. Let's give it a little more throttle. Although diesel gives notice then. Hey, I'm there. So it takes a little time to shift down. That was not really full throttle. So this one is in 190 horsepower diesel here. It's the smallest engine you can get so far. Later on there will also be an entry diesel and lower entry petrol engine to bring the base price of the vehicle down just a little bit. It will also be very interesting. And of course the hybrid engine we can present you at the later stage. Driving modes, this was comfort. We can also have eco. Then we can more use this so-called sailing or coasting. It means when I leave the throttle just as it is, the car is not reducing speed so much, but just rolling, the consumption drops to 0 liters, and I can just let the car roll out, maybe save some fuel by that. Then we could have the off-road mode, but just at very low speeds. Here at 50 kilometers an hour already tells me speed is too high, sorry, can't use it. We'll test it later on when we drive a little bit slower, because the reason is the car would put itself a little bit higher from the suspension, and for that it wants to go slower. Let's take a look at dynamic, high performance. The car shifts down a gear, so it shifts down earlier and shifts up later. It gives you better performance. Let's say you're on the motorway and want to drive a little bit faster, maybe taking an overtaking maneuver, that might be useful, or if you want to have a little bit more response. Does the steering wheel change? Now comfort again. Did I repeat it? Yes. Yeah, I think a little bit. It's really light. Dynamic now. Yeah, I think you get a little bit more responsive from the steering wheel. So if you, for example, say you want a little bit stiffer steering wheel, you could do that with the dynamic mode. Also, the paradigm shift in gear characteristics, gear and how the car is shifting. It's not that different. It's a little bit, you feel it, but it's not that you would say, I cannot ride in a dynamic mode all the time. You could do it, you will save more fuel if you're just in the comfort mode, but you also hear now at the moment, the car is not really loud. The engine is well insulated, you do not feel that much that it would be a diesel, only if you really hammer the throttle. And also as a warning, I'm more in favor of petrol engines nowadays than diesels. But the petrol engines here at Volvo, they consume so much fuel. So if you're driving really a lot, then it might still sense to go with a diesel just when you're really driving a lot. Other than that, the hybrid is of course also a nice, interesting option now already. I found the dynamic mode quite good because it gives you a little bit more throttle response. Maybe if I'm really relaxed, then I would go back to the comfort mode. Other than that, if I want a little bit sportier, I could very well imagine staying in this dynamic mode, because it makes the shifting a little bit faster and you feel a little bit more connected to the car overall. The shifting and then the acceleration doesn't lag that much behind, for example, in this case. What is also possible, if you put, because there are no shifting pedals at the steering wheel, but you can put the automatic gear lever to the left position, then you can shift manual. That's rather for example, when you're going downhill for a very long time and you want to use the engine brake. Then you might go down manually, just the gear, that you can, don't have to hammer the brakes all the time that much, that the engine brake is also helping you. For normal shifting, I would rather leave it in the normal mode. What about assistance systems? I can activate them here on the left side of the steering wheel. And this is for the adaptive cruise control and also for the pilot assist. This, wait a minute, was it called pilot assist at Mercedes or at Volvo? Really confusing with those brand names for the assisted driving or this semi-autonomous driving functions. Let's see. So let's set this one here to 50 now. This one should be the normal one, the adaptive cruise control. There are also, by the way, blind spot monitors inside. Let's see, when I go to the right side here now. And then when the next vehicle, I'll go a little bit slower just. And then you will hopefully see the next slow vehicle approaching very soon. So take a look. Ah, he's going behind me, come on. But this yellow Ford car might want to overtake me. See here now there it is, the right light in the mirror. Pretty helpful option. The autonomous emergency brake, AEB, that one comes standard equipment with every Volvo. Good choice. Also the important features. The other assistance systems then rather come optional, but in general Volvo has a wide list of those, and so they also try to have a unique feature in safety. So what about this cruise control? So at the moment I've set it to 50 now. The distance to the car in front of me is being kept. Also basically on as screen on the road, I'm reading the head-up display again. There I also got the symbol that I have the adaptive cruise control activated. And the system's actually working pretty flawlessly. Then if I go to the right arrow here, I also have the pilot assist. And you should not do that while I'm doing at the moment. It's just for display purposes, and I'm really keeping my hands in close proximity all the time. Just want to show you that this car already has the capability of driving itself. Now it says apply steering. So then I have to get the steering wheel again. Otherwise the system would deactivate because it's not meant to drive itself completely yet. It could theoretically, technically, but the governmental regulations are not that far. That will come over the years now. It is definitely a first step to that, or maybe I would rather say a second step already to that, because it does work. Here now again, left corner. Well, okay. I mean, you see in those situations, sometimes you think, shall I trust the machine right now or shall I not? And sometimes I'm not really 100% sure yet. You see, most of the time it works quite well, but of course, again, it's not meant to do that. Just to show you that it's already basically working. However, for example, here now in traffic, this can be really helpful then. Let's see if this is working. So maybe I could go left now, but I want to have this traffic situation for you now. I'm doing nothing at the moment. Let's see what the car does. 9 kilometers. I'm just rolling steadily now, and that could be really helpful. For example, this time I could open a water bottle, have some water, or do whatever. Of course, it's still not allowed to pick up your smartphone during that. Could still be fine for that. But I think, especially in traffic, when you're a little bit annoyed, come on, seriously. Then with this assist, especially for the traffic situations, you get a little bit relieved. You know, they say, okay, the car handles it. What is very boring now. That might also be a transition for autonomous driving itself in general, because we all love to drive. All people who watch this channel, including me. But there are so many traffic situations, meanwhile, where I say it's not about, you know, fun of driving. It's just boring, and it's really, you know, traffic, standing still, whatever, or cruise control on a 100 and going 5 hours one way. Then autonomous driving can really be helpful. See, all the time I really doing nothing, and that would be at the moment the main reason to go for this system, to use it as this traffic assist. Let's see, we're coming to a total standstill now, what the car does now. So now 0. What's the car doing now? This is pretty interesting. The car will also start automatically from itself, or if I have to apply the throttle just a little bit. Yeah, no, it does not. So I have to apply the throttle just a little notch. Then the system starts again. And the thing is, if you stay at this very low speed, I think the threshold is about 30, I think, then it's also okay to keep your hands off the steering wheel. The car, now it says apply steering, because it was, maybe it's also 50, I'm not exactly sure, but now I said really please apply it. But then, as you see all the time in the very low speed regions, the car didn't complain at all, because that's really, I mean, it's relatively safe situations. Again, you're still responsible. You have to keep, let's say we go left side now, it goes a little bit faster. You have to be able to control everything. And now to our last discipline for today, motorway, giving it a little bit more speed. You know, this dead steering, which is easy to control, it is somehow strange. And again, for sporty drivers will not be satisfied. But then again, I mean, it's still fun in a way. It feels a little bit computer game-like. It's very interesting. And again, for city driving, it's really helpful. So let's go to the dynamic mode, see what this car got. Yeah, we're in dynamic mode. And let's do some 70 to, let's see, I think we can even have unlimited speed here. So far, by the way, before I really apply the throttle right now, as for consumption, with this traffic and stuff, 13 liters. What? Okay, we'll take another look at that later. Okay, now we got a little bit down there, but let's just hammer the throttle off. 85, and bam. 100. 120. 140. 150. 160. 170, and that's enough. So I mean, this diesel engine here is totally enough. It's not really explosive in a way. Sound insulation wise, well, it's still okay. I mean, we're driving 160 kilometers an hour now. I think we had, you know, in some Mercedes or Audi a little bit better result at higher speeds, but then again, this is only a German thing. No other car market in the world drives 160 or 170 on the motorways, because it's just not allowed. Now at 130, which is a reasonable speed then for here. Car behaves quite well. Let's see. So this one would also be the maximum speed for the pilot assist usually. Let's see. Yeah, now it's got deactivated. 140, 35. Should be, yeah, 130. That's right. So theoretically this would also be working, and of course I don't want to take my hands off the steering wheel right now. But what I could use it for now would be that I relax a little bit more and let the vehicle do the fine-tuning on the road. So I keep my hands at the steering wheel, and then the vehicle is keeping itself in the lane. It feels a little bit strange to get some reaction from the steering wheel itself, of course, also when driving at higher speeds. but it could be something that maybe is also relieving some of the stress, you know, like hold onto the steering wheel, you know. But again, I think it's you know, it's rather for lower speeds there where the system is rather helpful. Of course, at any time you can turn it off, take it over yourself. What about stability now at higher speeds? Yeah, you feel with the air suspension the car is tilting really a lot then. So again, not set for a sporty ride, but I have no problem that the emphasis is on a comfortable ride. And again, if you want a sportier one, you can also go with the R design, not pick an air suspension, pick an R design suspension, then you're also sportier for your personal driving, so that's still possible. What about suspension in a dynamic mode if compared to the comfort mode? Let's test that one. Comfort. Not always sure if I really pressed it. So does it make a difference now? Steering is a little bit different. Bumps in the road. Now back to dynamic. Yeah, actually that was I was also displaying there in the front display. Maybe you've seen that. The car is putting itself a little bit lower in the dynamic mode. And that is also one of the reasons why the suspension is then a little bit stiffer. You feel that. Also steering reacts a little bit more. And if the suspension is a little bit lower, of course, that reduces the tilting. So I think it's good to have those different driving modes available. So if you want to have a little bit sportier, go with the dynamic mode. So then you can basically have two cars in one. The emphasis still remains on comfort. And well, sound insulation could be a little bit better on very high speeds. Other than that, it's also a great cruising car for the motorway. Just setting the cruise control, for example, now is 100 we got allowed, cruise control and let it roll. And there's not really much less comfort than with another huge SUV, also internally in the XC90. So again, from driving in the front, no problems at all. A very comfortable car. And overall, I mean, we gave you a detailed insight really. So many interesting aspects about this very vehicle. But overall, also if you compare it to the predecessor version, you feel it would be a little XC90, yes. It still got something from the old XC60, a little bit, but not too much actually. But I think, also driving-wise, if you're not the big sports fan, this is probably the best Volvo so far. Exterior-wise, definitely a beauty. I think we can agree on that. If not, put it in the comments. Alongside maybe the Jaguar F-Pace, I think those ones are my favorite in design from the exterior. Not too different though from the predecessor model, but especially the front is more modern and you have trim level differences also. You can really pick your favorite one. The interior, really refined. They are back on their game now. The very first XC90 reviews we did, they did something really new there and some of the deals were like, okay, but not super premium. They have fixed the little details now. I think the build quality now is really great, even better than in the current XC90 models. Also the styling is a little bit more sensual, definitely, and you have great options. You just have to go with the also lower or mid trim levels. If you go for the high trim levels, prices will rocket unbelievably. So, but I've mentioned earlier, especially with those city weave option, you have a good fabric leather red option, for example, which is sustainable, good from climate comfort, and also very attractive in design and price. The vehicle as it stands here today, although there's just the 190 horsepower diesel in it, with the inscription trim and all the extras, almost 80,000 euros, so you double the price. But that's again not necessary. So if you, for example, go with a small petrol engine and then go with a middle trim level, and you know, the AEB, for example, the city emergency brake is included anyway, some other important features included. You maybe get the rear view camera and good sound system. Then you can score at, let's say, a very good XC60, I would say about 50,000 euros. And then you still have something very attractive, but which is not super, super high in price yet. Driving-wise, very interesting. It feels and handles better than the XC90 because, I mean, it's the same modular architecture they're using for this one here than with the XC90. But still, as it's smaller, it's more agile, better to drive, more fun to drive. It's not the real sporty SUV. That is rather, you know, if you go with the BMW X4, X3, or with the Mercedes GLC 43. But with the air suspension, you get superb comfort. You can also pick it with the dynamic mode, but you can also just pick the standard suspension. You will totally fine by that. And if you want it a little bit sportier, go with the R design. Then you also have it a little bit stiffer. So possibilities are there, but the main emphasis is on comfort. And together, for example, with the new assistance systems, they are working really flawlessly, and thus a very comfortable ride, and also aiming towards semi-autonomous drive, which worked very well in traffic. So, a lot of positive things to say about this vehicle. On the negative side, well, the trunk cover, which is raising up automatically up, didn't raise automatically down again. I'm not sure why. That was a little bit strange to me, just a minor detail. So, and now, thank you again for tuning in to Autogefühl. Always remember to activate the notifications, so next to the subscribe button on our channel, there's the small bell. And check that you got this one activated, that you always get the information that we upload some new videos. And just bookmark autogefühl.com. Then you can always go back to our site that you don't miss any of our reviews. Thanks for tuning in.
And now to the conclusion of our comparison episode. And I will also give you my personal thoughts very soon. That will be a very close one. The Porsche Macan has the sportiest 911-like design and also the sportiest ride, even in the base version. However, in the interior, it's quite dated meanwhile, even after the facelift with a new infotainment system. And the prices are quite ridiculous. For some, the ride might also not be comfortable enough. The Macan is the only SUV in this test which is not offered as PHEV. The next generation Macan, however, will be all electric. Current fuel economy is also not that good with the Porsche Macan. The Mercedes GLC has a very elegant design. Also, the interior is quite sensual. Mercedes offers the best and widest variety of animal-friendly and sustainable seating choices. And the GLC also offers the most comfortable air suspension. The updated infotainment system with the facelift also shows the best natural voice control of all those cars. In recent German TÜV ratings, the GLC won also the best car for the whole market, making it maybe the most reliable vehicle built in the experienced Mercedes plant in Bremen in the north of Germany. I say maybe because there are always different reliable ratings and they all look, at different testing results. You can never be 100% sure. Although offering MF systems now, the Mercedes engines still consume too much fuel. The BMW X3 has a conservative exterior. The interior quality is meanwhile also very good, even though it's not super exciting. Best thing about the X3 is the natural and fun driving feeling. The Macan is sporty, yes, but the X3 is the ride with the most fun, without any compromise on comfort. The BMW adaptive suspensions are awesome, so you don't usually miss the air suspension option right here. The BMW 6-cylinders are probably the best combustion engines generally said, although we had the 4-cylinder for a better comparison in this test. All the BMW engines seem to consume a little bit less fuel than their competitors. The Audi Q5 is also very conservative on the outside. The interior is meanwhile also a little bit dated. Also, the interior is really clean and simple, less sensual than with the competitors, however also with good build quality. But you do see some coast cutting in some parts here and there, for example at the inside of the doors. The offering of space on the interior is among the best. The ride is a good mix of sportiness and comfort. Fuel economy is only good with the diesels. The Volvo XC60 offers a great different design, both exterior and interior, and also comes with a wonderful Scandinavian interior, especially with bright colors and the so-called city weave seats that come with a mix of fabric and leatherette, if you can pick those in your market. Also, the seating form itself is absolutely excellent and ergonomic, probably the best seat hardware in the test. The ride is the least sporty one of all the SUVs we tested. Also, the fuel economy of the combustion engines is the worst, so a PHEV would be the best choice, especially if you can recharge frequently. So where does that leave us? First, tell us your pick for today. All those SUVs are very refined and luxurious vehicles, and they are all somewhat among top of their game, and you'll have a lot of fun with all of them. Sadly, this premium midsize SUV segment seems to have an issue with fuel economy overall. They already consume as much fuel as the very large SUVs. Important questions to decide here are how sporty or how comfortable you want to have it, and how sensual or how clean you like the design. Because, as stated, all of these SUVs fill a certain niche somehow. My pick for the exterior would be the Volvo XC60 or the Porsche Macan. As for the interior styling, I would go with the Volvo XC60 or the Mercedes GLC. The interior functionality is best with the Mercedes GLC now, followed by the BMW X3. The fun driving experience is most convincing with the BMW X3 overall, with the Porsche Macan if you want it sportier. The Audi Q5 does everything very well and is, so to say, a perfect all-rounder that merges all the features. Still, for me, I would like to have a more characterful vehicle. I would love the XC60 exterior, the XC60 interior excluding their infotainment, or the GLC interior with their fabric and Alcantara seats and the MBUX infotainment system, as well as a natural sporty ride of the BMW X3. Yeah, this is a really tough one, but when I had to decide right here and right now, I'd probably try to get either BMW X3 PHEV with Sensortech seats and enjoy the natural steering and the most perfect adaptive suspension, or a Mercedes GLC PHEV with fabric Artico or Dynamica Artico seating mix in the AMG line, enjoy the natural voice control and pick the most comfortable ride with their Airmatic air suspension. Also, the noise insulation is best with the GLC. So far we have compared them and it didn't take any pricing into account. Let's take a look at that, because that can also change things. Sometimes there are special offers for a certain brand, and let's say a Volvo dealer would hand me the car at 10k cheaper than all of the other ones, or for the most decent leasing rate, then I'll also take that. I did some test configurations in the US and German configurator, all cars with a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine at a similar horsepower stage, with many options, some options tick, but not all of those, for example, for infotainment and assistance systems. So not too high spec overall. Of course, you can get them even more expensive. Interesting finding, both in the US and Germany, the Porsche Macan is clearly the most expensive one, so more expensive than all the others, like at least 5 to 10,000 euros more, or $5 to $10,000 more. In Germany, you pay around 60,000 euros for mid-spec of these SUVs, in the US about $50,000. However, German prices already include VAT. And as I said, the Porsche Macan is always above that price level. Mercedes GLC, Audi Q5 and Volvo XC60 are pretty similar in both cases. Strangely, just the BMW X3 differs quite a lot in pricing from the German to the US market, making it a little bit more expensive than GLC, Q5 and X3 in the US, but clearly cheaper than these in the German market. Even stranger, because the X3 is actually built in the US and not in Germany. I really love the Volvo XC60 for many features, but when buying at the very same price, I would sadly just be a little bit put off by the unconnected steering and riding feel, as well as by the infotainment control input. Or maybe I should try another test ride again in the XC60 PHEV with City Weave interior? What do you think, guys? The Audi is very, very good, but indeed doesn't convey enough character to me and joy as the other ones. The Macan is nice and sporty, but just too expensive, and at some point maybe also lacking in comfort and overrun by some features of the other competitors. So which one would you like to see me in? Volvo XC60, Macan, Q5, GLC or X3? And after my recent test rides, I'd probably lean towards the Mercedes GLC or take the X3 if it's at the end of the day, the clearly cheaper car in my market, which seems to be the case in the German market, at least at the moment. Yeah, still thinking about the XC60 still, because it's also lovely in so many points, but yeah, at the end of the day, you have to decide for something.